uh, V-Mart Retail. While reading the case, you may have been able to connect. If you remember from my professional introduction and background, I had shared that my last full-time corporate role was as head of strategy and corporate communication at V-Mart Retail. So that caselet you read is actually one of the high impact projects or initiatives that I led. And I recollect BCG or Bain, one of these two consulting firms, was working with us on that project. They helped us develop the entire architecture for the project and also implement, execute based on findings that we got from the project, do a large scale implementation across functions. And that is the part we will discuss as we go along. That it was just not an impressive, fanciful project. If you read the caselet, that's where it ends. This question being posed by board of directors is that all of this looks very impressive, what you've done. We now have this very, very insightful view into who our customers are. But where do we go from here? The C-suite in any company and the decision makers would always have that cynicism that beyond something which is looking like an impressive consumer research exercise, how do we use it? What does it imply? How can it help us become better? Maybe get more competitive, attract and retain customers better than we were doing before. So it has to translate into very, very tangible and intangible gains for the business. That's the part we are going to discuss. And the other case is on Salesforce Ignite. Anyone who would like to give a very brief opening to that caselet, Salesforce Ignite?
The case study talks about the business model of Salesforce,
Yes.
how they were different from the others in the business, same like SAP or other major players, how because they were all using a different type of approach where the implementations were huge, and then the time to implement and the time for the business to start using it takes months or years, whereas Salesforce is looking at a subscription based model, and they were trying to use cloud to their advantage, where and even though everybody's all the users, their data or their activities are from the reside on the same place, but they give a feel of that you are virtually, if you're looking at it, treated as separate entities. So that gives users the confidence that they are their data is secure and other things. So many innovations they brought in, right from the subscription model to everything. So that really helped them outgrow their competition and their go-to market, and everything was like very fast, and any changes they want to make, it was a quick turnaround was there. Otherwise, if you see from a SAP point of view, if you want something to be changed, it takes another few months for them to get things done, and they have to do it individually. So here, yes.
Okay. And
the revenue model, yeah, everything was different.
Yeah, and specifically pertaining to Ignite, what did you gather in terms of how this was a design-led intervention? In fact, a design-led solution that Salesforce developed for its customers because it saw an unaddressed need gap. If you remember the four-step design thinking process, which is understanding current reality. So Salesforce saw there was a need gap, an unmet or undermet need with many of its large customers who were struggling to figure out, and we are talking of the late 2000s, which is about 2009, 2010, very, very early days for lots of these terms which have become so commonplace now: digital strategy, artificial intelligence, data analytics. How do we bring all of this together? Companies were even large organizations who had very, very capable and experienced information technology teams in place. They were still struggling to define a strategy around how do we bring all of it together for internal value creation and external value creation, which means our internal stakeholders and external stakeholders, the combination of data analytics, digital, and existing IT infrastructure. How does all of this come together? Cloud computing. These terminologies have become so commonplace because it is integral to an organization's survival today. But we are talking of 15 years back. And Salesforce realized that they were already offering something which was getting them embedded with large organizations, digital suite of sales focused solutions or sales process excellence focused solutions. So they saw there was a need gap both to horizontally and vertically expand into a new opportunity. So some of you may be familiar with Ansoff's matrix as a strategy framework. Has anyone heard of this Ansoff's matrix?
In the Ansoff hierarchy you're talking about?
No, maybe when I draw this on the whiteboard, some of you will be able to recollect. It's a very, very useful framework for any scenario where you as a company are trying to figure out new opportunities and how do we go about tapping into new opportunities. So all of you can see my whiteboard now, right?
So diversification strategy, right?
Yes, that's right. One of these strategies there is
other market and products. That one, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just a moment. Yeah. It is a very pertinent case if you think of in terms of this framework, very pertinent case to which we can apply this framework very effectively to understand and then analyze what Salesforce did. And then I will also share with you some numbers around where is Salesforce today in terms of market capitalization and revenue. Obviously, a direct correlation between Salesforce Ignite and where it stands today can't be drawn because that kind of analysis and data is not there. But Salesforce Ignite contributed in ways beyond just its direct revenue and profitability contribution. And that's the design thinking led solution part we will be discussing in the case. So Ansoff's matrix on the X and Y axis, you have so you can put existing here and you can interchange that as well, but I'm putting existing on the Y axis. And new on the X axis. Products, and this can be markets or customer segments.
This meeting is being recorded.
And similarly on the Y axis, your products, markets and customer segments. Now, the way to, so this matrix you are seeing, 2x2 matrix, this is called Ansop's matrix, named after its creator, Igor Ansop, a Russian mathematician, strategist, and I recollect also a renowned chess player. So in that sense also he was a strategist, because chess does teach you a lot about strategy. So if you look at each of these four quadrants, the combination of so if you have existing, okay, just a moment, I think I have interchange products, new and existing. Markets and customer segments, new and existing. So where would you put Salesforce Ignite? Let's also number each of these quadrants. So let's say this is quadrant 1, this is 2, 3, and 4. In clockwise order. So where would you put Salesforce Ignite? Is it a new product? Is it an existing product? Is it targeting new markets, or is it targeting existing markets or customer segments?
For
New product, existing market.
existing product and new market.
Okay. So products would also obviously extend to services, solutions, any new offering. So which quadrant are we talking about?
I think it should be 4.
Okay, so it's a new product targeted at new markets or customer segments. Can it also be in any other quadrant?
Existing product and new market.
Yeah, it can be 2 also, right? Because products are, I mean, they just updated how they are going to charge the product, right? Charging model has changed, but market and product still remains the same.
Salesforce Ignite is a new offering that he has created. It's a new team also that he has created. This capability did not exist, which is why he is hiring from technology companies as well as consulting companies.
Can be 3 also.
It can be 3.
Then
So it's a new team, new offering that has been created. Obviously, it is leveraging some of the existing capabilities of Salesforce. But if you read through the case about Salesforce Ignite, it's something which is so radical that they have had to hire from completely unrelated sectors, technology and consulting, and then build those capabilities within Salesforce. So it could also be new product for an existing, which they have all of these large customer accounts, client accounts. So it can be new products or solutions for existing, which is quadrant 3, and new products or solutions, Salesforce Ignite, for new markets and customer segments. New markets can also be new geographic markets. They can also be new industry segments. And obviously, within existing industry segments, there can be companies they have not targeted before, but now they can target such organizations. So if you consider this entire opportunity that opens up for Salesforce because of this offering, this entire opportunity that has opened up for Salesforce, do you see any adjacent opportunities also that may open up for Salesforce because of this? Which means existing products and new market, and existing products and existing markets and customers. Can there be adjacent opportunities created because of what they are doing with Salesforce Ignite?
Because their main aim is to penetrate further into the market, so that will definitely help in upselling to the existing customers.
Excellent. So I was waiting to hear those words. So there is cross-selling. which means somebody comes to Salesforce for Salesforce Ignite, which is help me execute my digital cloud computing analytics strategy, the convergence of it, and ends up also becoming a customer of Salesforce's existing product suite. So that's cross-selling. And upselling, which means there is an existing customer of Salesforce that is not using Ignite, and they decide to also start trialing Ignite. So there are cross-selling and upselling opportunities that also get created for the organization. In that sense, all four quadrants are benefiting from what they have done. I would show you something that since 2010, where Salesforce stands today. Look at the share price trajectory of Salesforce. We are talking of around the time that Ignite was launched. Since then, if you look at the trajectory, it was at about $21 per share. And to my knowledge, there has been no share split, stock split. So from 21, it is almost 15 times, 1500% growth since then where it is today. And the revenue has increased from about $9 billion to about 35. FY24 was about 35 billion USD. Now, how much of it can be attributed to Salesforce Ignite? That kind of parsing is not available, but still, looking at the way they designed this offering and the cross-selling, upselling opportunities. And in the last session, we were talking about this ecosystem approach. That is how Apple has created an ecosystem of products and services through which there is customer lock-in. And so many reasons someone would want to be an Apple customer. So there are so many different needs of a customer that an organization can serve, which is possible for Salesforce through Ignite. And it was at the right time because that was the inception of this entire convergence of analytics, digital, and cloud. When organizations had just started thinking about it is when Salesforce introduced their Ignite offering. Any thoughts you have about what you are seeing here?
Doc, what could have been the reason for the share price to have fallen down like this and then gone up again?
Yeah, okay.
COVID.
Yeah, but then COVID was between 19 and 2021,
Yes,
but this
yeah.
is happening at about
So,
22,
yes.
23, 24.
Yeah, I think that was during the time that they had a breach, security breach.
If any of you is familiar with Bloomberg event analysis feature that is there. So on Bloomberg, when you do similar share price analysis over time, it also shows you certain milestones of the company, wherever dips and highs are happening. That's where you will find the explanation. All of the dips and highs that you are seeing here has an explanation. At times, it can be something as extraneous, which is not to do with the company, as Donald Trump making an announcement in the US and the stock price dives or goes up 10%, or the budget being presented in the by the finance minister and a certain company's share price, because there is some announcement done for telecom sector and this company happens to be a leading telecom equipment supplier and share price hits upper circuit that day, whatever that is, 15%, 20%, 10% for that share. But there are company-specific factors. So we will need to segregate these two. A lot of these things that you are seeing here, highs and lows, are happening because of extraneous factors or combination of extraneous, which is beyond the control of the company, like COVID pandemic. It is logical to assume if you look at the share price sharp uptick during COVID pandemic, a company like Salesforce would have benefited immensely. And it hit a peak here in 2022, and then it started falling. So what has happened here, there has to be an explanation because over the next 1.5 years, it kept falling and then it started rising. Each of these, there is an explanation. But if you look at the long term, if you were to do time series analysis, and you were to look the long-term trend from 2010 onwards, you can very clearly see the trajectory that the company has taken. And somewhere this linkage between what their strategy was in launching Salesforce Ignite and the growth that the company has experienced. If you read about the customer stickiness of Salesforce, even today they remain unchallenged in their domain. How do you think that has happened, and what is the contribution of an offering like Salesforce Ignite? Is something I wanted to trigger as a discussion.
What they actually did was they worked with the customers to give a customized solution, and took about 2 to 3 months for collaborating with the customers.
Okay.
And give them the solution, which was initially free of cost.
Mm-hmm.
And then subsequently, probably they started charging for it when it became successful.
Okay. There is a link I have just shared. This link was also there in the case study. Have you seen this video? I can play it for all of you. It's just a short 3-minute video. It would deepen our understanding of what exactly was the thought behind Salesforce Ignite. Okay, I'm playing it now. You can just confirm that audio and video are playing fine. Is it good enough?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Today's digital business world utilizes streamlined, user-friendly solutions that have revolutionized the way companies work. Cloud technology is the backbone of consumer apps on smartphones and other connected devices. Software as a service business models, also known as SaaS, increases company presence and agility online where business is competitive and not easy to navigate. San Francisco company Salesforce originated these concepts that have taken over online business and made them an undisputed leader through customer-related management applications focused on customer service, marketing automation, analytics, and application development. Since 1999, Salesforce founder and CEO Mark Benioff has sought to make business software simpler to use and more democratic, without the complexities of installation, maintenance, and constant upgrades. He recognized the internet's game-changing possibilities and foresaw that it could revolutionize how businesses built and consume technology. Outside of the technical innovations possible, Benioff also wanted to tackle the strategic obstacles his clients faced in improving their customer outreach and product quality. Thus, he began Ignite, a design thinking consultation team to help Salesforce's biggest clients maximize their business value. Ignite conducts deep research into their customers' customers to uncover gaps in user experiences, products, and services. In a project with a well-known bank, Ignite interviewed bank executives to understand their goals and pain points, and then interviewed the bank's customers to identify gaps in their banking experiences and why they chose any given bank over others. Sometimes Ignite's work focuses inside its client's organization, researching the experience of that client's employees and proposing solutions to make their jobs easier or increase employee engagement. After Ignite engagements in 2013 and 14 helped Salesforce secure some of the biggest enterprise deals in the company's history, the sales organization started to demand more of Ignite services. As Ignite built a portfolio of successful projects that demonstrated its emphasis on value creation, customers grew more interested in the possibility of an Ignite engagement. By late 2015, Ignite was in high demand, which made qualifying potential engagements more important. What would make an ideal Ignite engagement, and how would that be determined? Continuing to grow ultimately meant adding people, but what's the best way to do so and to pay for them? And how do they sustain this growth well into the future? For more, please read the Berkeley Haas case, Innovation, Co-Creation, and Design Thinking, How Salesforce's Ignite team accelerates enterprise digital transformation.
We couldn't access that particular
The case
article.
you're talking about the case that you could not access.
Yeah, that's the one that mentioned.
Yeah, that is licensed material. I have the case with me, but I can't share it in an open forum because I have a Harvard Business School account because of my association with multiple IIMs as faculty. So I have access to all of this material. A lot of that also I am bringing into our discussion here, so, and more I would share as we go along in the next few minutes. But what did you gather from this brief video about the much bigger importance of Salesforce Ignite? It is quite evident that these can be even tidbit assignments, like consulting assignments on the sideline. So in terms of its revenue impact, sheer standalone revenue impact, it is not as if a Salesforce Ignite assignment will be a few $100 million a multi-year engagement. It could be a few months of engagement. It could be a few $1 million. But there is a much bigger opportunity it is creating for the organization. That's what the video was also alluding to. What do you think about that?
And here
They were able.
sorry. Here the focus is more on to understand the business. I mean, normally most of the IT companies they just looking at the their customers. If, for example, if we do something for a bank, we look at the bank and then we try to fix some of their issues, and we need to we understand their business. But here they went one step ahead. They looked at their customer's customer. So that really was a game changer. That was a game changer.
So it's a foot in the door strategy for Salesforce because through Ignite, they are getting into the boardroom and the C-suite directly. Many of you have experience in IT implementation and management, and you would have seen that typical IT project at the execution level, you engage with mid-management and junior management. But consulting, strategic consulting projects, you engage directly with senior management and the C-suite. Now, design thinking projects of the nature that the video was talking about, which is what Ignite focuses on, brings them directly in touch with strategy stakeholders in any organization. These are senior most decision makers. And when they see that, okay, Salesforce Ignite team is able to understand something that was previously undiscovered, undiagnosed, unaddressed, they have faith in Salesforce to then look at a longer, bigger engagement, which is their main product suite. So this is the kind of cross-selling we were talking about. Ignite is giving them a foot in the door and the attention of and the ears of senior most stakeholders, decision makers, through which they are then able to generate these large enterprise deals. That is what the video was talking about. So the direct contribution of Ignite to their top line and bottom line compared to their overall revenue, which is about $35 billion USD today, may be tiny. But the indirect contribution, there could be a $500 million USD deal that materialized because it started as an Ignite engagement and then morphed into a much bigger multi-year enterprise deal for Salesforce. And another aspect is that there's an existing customer who is taking the product suite subscription. If you look at the case study, it gives you a split between subscription and support revenue and other revenue sources. Let me show. Yes. Here it is. So look at the split here. What do you gather from this split about how Salesforce Ignite as a design thinking intervention is strategically contributing to Salesforce's revenue and profitability growth? Where would you put Salesforce Ignite? Which of the two heads?
Professional services and others.
And even within professional services, if you were to just focus on Salesforce Ignite, it will be a tiny percentage of the overall revenue. This is FY20, it was 17 billion USD. And we can see the meteoric growth, right? It has doubled, the revenue has doubled since then. In the last 5 years, Salesforce was founded in 1999 or 2000. And so it took them almost 20 years to reach 17 billion USD. And then it has taken less than 5 years for them to double that. They added the next 17 billion in the next 4 years. And that growth is reflected, this revenue growth is reflected in their share price performance. First 17 came in 20 years and the next 17 came in the next 4 years. Obviously, they have also ridden the wave of post-pandemic digital adoption, accelerated adoption. They have ridden it and benefited from it handsomely. And somewhere, Ignite is helping them create that lock-in and also foot in the door. So larger enterprise deals opportunity. If you notice, the video mentioned that the inside sales team of Salesforce is demanding from Ignite team to support them in their sales engagement, in their sales pitches. So within Salesforce also, the sales team is seeing Ignite as an opportunity to put a foot in the door. See, people who are in enterprise sales are always looking for ways which are very intelligent, non-intrusive ways of reaching out to their target. Many of you would have been in B2B sales roles or pre-sales BD roles, and some of you will be in those roles right now. And you would agree that to get a foot in the door where it does not feel like you are a clingy salesperson, where you are chasing someone for their time and they're trying to evade you, shake you off their shoulders. But in this case, actually the clients will be chasing you because they see value in having an Ignite related discussion. What else did you notice about, there is a job description I had shared in the caselet that I created. What does this job description tell you about design thinking competencies? This was an innovation manager role in Ignite team. And these are the experience and competency requirements it is referring to. If you read through each of these, it gives you an insight into what is it that design thinkers really do on a day-to-day basis. How many of you are in a role currently or lead a team currently where some of these things are required fairly frequently? Because if you're doing any of this, not all of this, but if you're doing any of these, then there are shades of design thinking in your current role or in the team that you are leading.
Yes, Ranjan, I think I can relate to very much what I'm doing right now.
Okay.
Me too.
This is pretty much like a consultant's job description as well.
Yeah.
But the difference here is the consulting here is customer user centric, which is why
Right.
Ignite team is sitting with their clients' customers. You can't be more deeply embedded into your client's organization than to sit with their customers and identify need gaps at that level. It's like tier 2. Then you are actually, your client would consider you a true partner. They would see you as their team. Imagine the stickiness it creates. Yes.
Ranjan, the same word I was about to say. The way we work with our clients is that they see us as a partner. So we help them achieve so the business objective is what the client's business objective is what we will work towards. So that's how they see us not as a vendor but as a partner. So we treat them as they treat us as a partner. So that's a barrier that needs to be broken. That helps in the client knowing that whatever this person is going to say, this organization is going to make, that is to help their business grow, their customers benefit. So that is a big thing that can happen. That's the best thing, the way forward.
Extremely vital in B2B context, because you don't have dozens of people to talk to in your client organization. There are only a few. And if they don't see you as a partner, then there is no other door to knock. In B2C, you have tens of thousands of customers. These 15, 20 are not paying much heed. You can move to next 15, 20. But B2B sales, every meeting, every lead is a big missed opportunity. You just have to your message has to land right with them. And a message where they see you as a partner, like Irshad is saying, there is no better message than that. Yes, Vishnu, go ahead.
Yeah, so I would like to say that basically this is a very proactive approach, wherein the solution the customer would like to, like this is a very customized solution, wherein the customer or the client will be more than happy to pay a premium as well.
Right. Yes, absolutely. Yes, Sharad, go ahead.
I was just saying that this also breaks a traditional approach, right? If you see any digital intervention in the company, typically what happens is you will first have a management consultant who will come in, propose a solution. IT could be one of the solution.
Yeah.
Then they will be engaging an IT solution partner who will come on board and then provide this.
Yeah.
Wherein Salesforce is providing the entire spectrum together as one package.
Right. And look at all the terminologies they are using here in the opening paragraph of this role. Elements of strategy: user research, visioning, ideation, visual storytelling, business model design, rapid prototyping, and in-market concept testing and experimentation. Nearly all of the tools in the last session we were discussing across the 4 stages of design thinking process, they are covered here. I mean, if you attended this course and then you had some experience in those areas, you could apply for this role or even more senior role in this company. That's exactly what they're asking for.
And many companies like come across Siemens, ABB, GE, they also have set up kind of an internal consulting team within the company who is providing similar solutions. So many companies, traditional companies, are now kind of emulating a similar strategy what Salesforce is done through network.
Okay, and any other insight anyone would like to share on Salesforce Ignite before we move to the other case, VMart, which is a B2C environment. So that's why I picked these 2 very different caselets. There is Salesforce Ignite has this flavor of B2B, very, very tech, data, digital-driven, digital-led, cross-selling, upselling that is happening with large key account management, large client accounts, enterprise sales, whereas the VMart case is as grassroots as it can get in B2C. It is the heat and dust of India, not even India. We used to call Bharat that we are the retailer for Bharat, which is tier 2, 3 towns and even Mofussil towns and villages, which are on the intersection of village and small towns. Places like Bihta, Ara, if you are familiar with these places, Ghazipur, in Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, because that was our catchment target. 65% of stores were in these 2 states. And although we were present in 20 states, but barring the big states in the west and south, we were present everywhere. But these 2 states accounted for 65% of our stores, Uttar Pradesh and Bihar. And why was it that so? That was by design, not by any accident or compulsion. That was by design since the inception of the company. I will discuss with you why it was so in a while. But if you look at these 2 very different contexts, Salesforce Ignite and VMart Retail, but there are certain common threads that are running across these 2 very different contexts as businesses. One common thread is that a very, very user-centric approach has been taken by both the companies in developing the solution or approach we are looking at. The other common thread across these 2 contexts is it's something that is translating into very clear, tangible end user benefits. Anything that comes to your mind about Salesforce Ignite before we cap our discussion on how this design thinking led intervention itself is an example of design thinking. So they have designed Salesforce Ignite as a design thinking led intervention, which accelerates their growth and opens up new sales opportunities. But this itself is an example of design thinking because they are looking at an unmet need of their clients, which is how do clients grapple with this challenge of digital, cloud, and analytics execution? How do they approach it strategically with a multi-year plan? And how can they implement this for their customers as well. So they see this is an unmet need, an unaddressed need, and they came up with Salesforce Ignite as an idea. So therefore, this design thinking led offering itself becomes an example of design thinking. Any observation that you think we might have missed? Any insight you want to share before we cap this discussion and move to V-Mart Retail?
For one thing, I would, though we have touched upon it, it is empathizing. Empathize is how to understand the user needs, because that's something which Salesforce Ignite was addressing. Looking from the user perspective, your vendor perspective, your customer perspective, how to customer, their customer. So that's an empathize, understanding their needs. That's something which we can look at. And apart from that, again, the tools which they used is user interviews, because they were able to talk to their customers, the end customers. For example, if it's a bank, the bank customer, they did a user interview. So those kind of tools they were able to use, which gave them more insights into, and that helped in the overall.
Yes. In fact, if you as a group you are still thinking about the project topic that you want to work on, you could even think of developing a new offering or a potential new offering in your current role, something that is an unmet or unaddressed need, undermet or unmet need gap, and you identify such a need and you come up with a solution. Even if it is half baked, it is fine. Something like that also could be an action learning project topic. Yes, Vishnu, go ahead.
Sir, I have a general question regarding this. This in the India, Salesforce has appointed Ms. Bhattacharya, ex-SBI MD, CEO. So, like, are they more focusing on banking and financial sector or something like that? Like any strategical?
You are talking about Arundhati Bhattacharya?
Yeah.
Okay. Is she on the board of directors?
She's
the head of Salesforce India. Right?
Chairperson and CEO. Okay. Yes. Yeah. I would assume that given her wealth of experience and expertise in the banking sector, that too with very complex PSU banking setup, and obviously the largest bank in India, so many decades of rich experience, Salesforce must be looking at utilizing that to get more headway into the banking BFSI segment in India.
Okay. Thank you.
It's actually a very smart move by Salesforce. I read about it somewhere, but I was not exactly aware that she is the chairperson and CEO. I must have receded in my memory, but good that you shared this example.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. All right. Before we move to V-Mart case, there is somebody mentioned GE as an example of an organization that has adopted design thinking led approach. So I have this example. Sometime back, I was teaching a course in design thinking at IMK. It's in an executive management program at IM Kozhikode. And I shared this example of a very interesting example of GE's MRI machine for children. Many of you will have young children, or you would have had and who have grown up now. But if I were to ask you as a parent, what is your biggest fear about putting your kid through an MRI machine, what would it be? Think about this as an end user, as the parent or the child.
Raise impact on the parts of the body.
Okay, that's one. Which is a very tangible risk, absolutely. But is there more to it?
One other thing is leaving the child alone inside the machine. That again is even to be honest, when I went through the MRI, I was so scared.
Yeah.
And also, you should not do any sort of movement when keeping inside that child. Also risky.
Some of you may have been through the MRI experience yourself, right?
Claustrophobia is also one thing.
Even for adults, it can be a very scary and intimidating experience. Imagine for kids, what would it be like? So, this is a brief story, YouTube caselet on how GE came up with a very, very radical idea, which was to completely alter the MRI experience for children, and obviously it also targeted the emotions of parents then. And this caselet takes you through what was that idea and how did GE identify the unmet need, how did they go about addressing it, and what has been the outcome and impact. So let me just play it for you.
Hi, I'm Doug Beats. I'm the principal designer for global design at GE Healthcare, and I'm the lead designer for Adventure Series. The Adventure Series is really an activity that we've been working on to see what can we do around our diagnostic imaging equipment to make it friendlier for both the family and for young patients.
Visible and audible to all of you?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. We have large diagnostic imaging equipment at GE Healthcare. They're huge, and some of them make noises. Adventure Series is really looking at it really from the child's perspective, looking at where their anxiety points are and coming up with some really nice solutions that help those, whether those...
Where their anxiety points are, so you get the feeling they're talking about customer journey mapping. The entire journey from booking the MRI scan or being a doctor asking a kid to go through an MRI as a part of diagnostics recommended by the physician, and then going through the MRI itself, the entire experience, they're reimagining the entire customer journey. And they came up with this line and an entirely new line of MRI machines developed exclusively for kids, which they called as Adventure Series. So they are creating a whole adventure experience for kids. Instead of them shunning or even getting intimidated by this experience, they have totally turned around the question and asking themselves, how can we make this fun and enjoyable? Instead of asking the question, how can we reduce the fear factor, they've totally appended the question and they're asking, how can we make this fun and enjoyable?
Are visually taking over the room in a theme, like a jungle theme or a pirate adventure or something, as well as music that leads them into the room and coloring books. So we wanted to have elements that addressed all the anxiety points.
My name's Liz Auer.
I'm Duncan Auer.
Where is this? Children's Hospital of Pittsburgh. Well, we're here today for a CT scan of Duncan's sinuses. He's had some really chronic congestion and coughing. So we're going to have a look and see what's going on in there. And the pirate room was pretty cool. Mm-hmm. The room was painted completely like a pirate setup, including the floor. The floor was like the dock with the water on the sides, and animals and things on the walls. And the CT scanner itself was like the wheel of a pirate ship. It's for a child, it can be kind of scary. You see things that make noise and look very institutional. And this is, you're not even really thinking about the fact that you're doing a procedure. Very, very welcoming, very whimsical and fun.
Distraction starts out with a few items to try to catch the child's attention. But you need more than that. You have to have the buy-in from the staff, the physicians, from the nurses, the technologists, and even the families, so that when they come here and they see what we've done and how we've decorated the rooms, they feel as if they really are on an adventure. And they feel when they're having their scan, there's no need to be panicked or afraid. So that when they get up out of the scan and they leave, they're walking out that door with a positive feeling.
We really started rough with our ideas, and behind me you'll see some of the sketches.
So this is very valuable, where Doug Dietz, the principal designer, he has more than 2 decades of experience doing this kind of product innovation. He's talking about the process that he followed into developing what we have just seen.
We came up with just pencil and pen, getting our ideas down, and we thought from the beginning what a powerful thing it would be.
If you go back to design thinking tools and techniques, this is visioning, ideation, brainstorming, all of those tools are being used. Customer journey mapping would follow subsequently.
A cross-functional team that allowed us to look at this from many different filters. We brought in child life specialists who worked with Fern Schupak, director of the Children's Museum here in Milwaukee.
We're thrilled that GE approached us. We serve, 200,000 children and adults every year. I think they felt that they really could, be driven, their project could be driven in part by the expertise that we could offer in terms of how to meet the needs of children and families. As an adult who's gone through scary medical testing, I know it's just tremendous anxiety. The difference with children is that, our ability as adults to explain to them what they can expect. Children are creatures of habit. They really rely on their senses to understand their world. As an adult, I walk into a hospital and I say, oh, I hate that hospital smell. For a child, it's why doesn't it smell like my pajamas? Why doesn't it smell like my mom? Why doesn't it smell like our kitchen? This is the essence of the childhood experience. We need to be more focused on the needs of children and families, whether it is in the context of medical procedure or early childhood development as a foundation for doing better in school. So, and this is another area where I think the GE team was incredibly receptive to the message that we're carrying, which is as a community, and I mean that in sort of a global sense, as a community, we always need to be pushing the envelope in terms of what we can do to meet the needs of children and families and make their experience richer, more rewarding if we want better outcomes.
Why I really wrapped myself around this and tried my best to pull in some of the best people that I could to work with me is that I always kept in my mind that frightened child that was going through cancer or that was really having some problems going through their scan. That is such a tough thing for a little one. It's such a tough thing for a family. And I did put my heart and soul behind it. And it means a lot to me now that we have a solution and that the solution is helping the way it is and it's helping these families. And what a great thing to work for a huge company like GE, but show some passion like this that we can do something for people.
So you could see towards the end that Doug Deeds is just not doing this as a job, or a problem to be solved, but he was personally invested in it. He probably had some traumatic experience in his personal life, in his family, or around him, where he would have felt that a child is being put through this trauma and this agony, and what can I do about it? So I think Kapil has texted, after implementation, it seems so easy, which is the beauty of design thinking led solutions. It is so intuitive. If you look at each of the 5 caselets in the first session we had discussed, in retrospective, they all seem so effortless, so logical, so commonsensical. But to design something like that, which is so commonsensical, requires you to go through so much of complex thought processes and unlock that hairball, untangle that hairball that Apple product designer was referring to. That design thinking is akin to that hairball. You start with a complex question. Here the question was that how can we make the MRI experience fun and enjoyable, an adventure? And that's a very different question from asking as a problem statement that how can I reduce the intimidation and fear that kids are experiencing? That's a very different question. Here you are taking a big leap of faith. And you are it's like saying that people don't want to wait in queues at the airport or anywhere. Human beings don't want to stand in a queue and wait for a long time to be catered to or to be served. But can I make the wait time enjoyable? And I have seen this personally. One of many years back on a trip to England and then to Scotland, I witnessed that there was this cafe, or more of a brewery plus cafe, And where I was staying, I would see for 3 evenings that I stayed there, every evening I would see there would be a long queue of the patrons a long snaking queue, like in a place like Scotland, where you have much lesser number of human beings around at any place. You see like 120, 150 people have queued up to just get seated. But then I realized that they were not waiting impatiently to be seated. They were being served there in a queue. That was actually a part of the overall experience. And most of them were elderly people. So they had a community time gathering there. And they were being served there by this restaurant while they were standing outside in that queue. And there were even these high stools that were kept there for them to sit and wait. And if they got a seat inside, fine. Otherwise, they were having a gala time, chatting up with each other, community folks from nearby places. And for them, it was an evening they looked forward to because they've got this community feeling. And they were being served there. Certain snacks and drinks were being served there on the stone pavements where they were waiting in the queue. And this had turned into some kind of, somebody was playing a guitar, music was being played. The restaurant servers were floating, milling around with them, chatting, creating a very lively, humorous environment. And all of this service was being paid for by them, and gladly, willingly. Some people, I got the feeling looking at them that they actually preferred to stand there instead of being seated inside. So somehow this restaurant, a local restaurant there, had turned the waiting experience into a positive paying customer. That's really upending the entire logic, that how can I reduce the queue to how can I monetize the queue and make it enjoyable. So many revolutionary products and services have come out of this kind of contrarian thinking, and which is what the Arvind Eye Care Hospital did. No hospital eye care chain would touch these poor patients with a barge pole because they just can't be profitable. How can we access them and how can we serve them profitably? So they asked, okay, what if we serve them for free if they don't have the money, but we are still profitable? That's a very radical question to ask. In an extreme sense, that's what design thinking would look like. It is asking that impossible question and then asking yourself, why can't we do this? Pick a big problem and turn it around on its head and ask yourself, everyone is saying this can't be done. Let me see, why can't we do this? That brings me to the V-Mart caselet. So let me take you to, because I worked very closely with the founder of the company, so I can actually take you through the contrarian thinking that I personally witnessed. How many of you are familiar with this company, V-Mart?
Yeah, I've seen an outlet in Bhubaneswar.
I have also seen the outlets of V-Mart.
Okay. So V-Mart retail started in 2003, and it was, since day one, it was led by a very, very contrarian or even radical thought. The thought was, if you go back to early 2000s, these were early days for organized retailing in India. Malls which have proliferated all around us today. Having one mall even in a large city was a big deal. I remember around that time, 1998-99 is when I completed my graduation and I landed in Delhi. My first job was here. I was working with Wimpy's International Limited. That was the first multinational fast food chain to set up shop in India. McDonald's and Domino's had just entered India, but Wimpy's was already big. Today, Wimpy does not exist anymore. It ceased operations 10 years back. And obviously, somebody who was in his early 20s, I had just started working, and you would look forward to some of the evening outings. And there was only one mall in Delhi then. Anyone who is from around that time who remembers which mall am I referring to? That mall
maybe
Ansal Plaza.
Maybe Ansal Plaza.
Absolutely wonderful. So you remember where it was located?
Yeah, South Delhi.
Yes. So that's the first mall in Delhi, and today people hardly talk about that mall. I don't even know if it still exists in that form or it has been taken over by some other structure.
It is still there.
It is still there, Siddharth?
Yes, sir.
Okay. But that was the happening place to go to in Delhi. And the second one in a limited sense was this where NDTV studio used to be in east of Kailash. That's where the first international retail chain in India opened called Nan Supermarkets. It is a German retail chain, and Nan's opened in India in collaboration with Escorts Group. And in those days, the thinking was that the mall phenomenon is something, as an organized retail phenomenon, is metros and tier 1 towns. The reason I am taking you all of you back there is because you have to situate yourself in that era, and then you will realize how radical and contrarian this thought was of V-Mart Retail's genesis. Lalit Agarwal, many of you will be familiar with Vishal Mega Mart, right? Vishal Mega Mart founding team was Agarwal family, Lalit and 2 of his cousins. And then Lalit had some difference of ideology or opinion with his co-founders, and he separated from them, exited, sold off his stake back to them, and then he started his own company, that is V-Mart Retail. So it comes from the same founding DNA, from the same family. 2003 when he started, his thought was, I am not going to target metros and tier 1 towns. And you're talking of an era when large mall setup as an organized retail setup was still a nascent concept in tier 1 towns. Here is a man who is saying, as an entrepreneur, I'm not going to target metros and tier 1 towns, I'm getting into tier 2 and 3 towns. Which means this is a person who is saying that I'm getting into places like, I mentioned some of the names earlier, like Ara in Bihar, or Ghazipur in UP, or Sitapur in UP, or Bihta, Jamui, Devghar, places like these. And you are saying these tier 2, 3 towns where people have not even heard of what a mall is. This is early 2000s we are talking about. You are going to open a retail mall-like store to sell fashion apparel. That is as crazy as it gets. People in the industry themselves today who look at V-Mart and say what a clutter-breaking idea and business model. At that point in time, everyone became a critic of this idea, and everyone was cynical about whether this will succeed, this experiment. So V-Mart, since its inception, has focused on tier 2 and 3 towns. If you look at the business idea itself, it's an example of design thinking, because you're looking at the current reality. What Lalit saw was based on his own experience since childhood, because he grew up in Cuttack, in Odisha. And when he was growing up there, his father ran a very successful store called Shriman Shrimati. Anyone from Cuttack in this group or from Odisha? No one? So in Cuttack, he ran...
I work there, I have seen the outlet.
Oh, you have seen Shriman Shrimati?
Yeah.
It used to, I have been told by Lalit, it was a very popular local outlet there for fashion apparel.
Yeah.
Okay, so Lalit's father started that, and Lalit came from a family, from a Marwari family that had been in textile wholesale buying and selling for the last 2 generations. So the back end of the value chain, the apparel value chain, is something where he had cut his teeth very early. I mean, imagine growing up as a child where all around you there are discussions happening of textile buying and selling. So understanding of textile and fabric is something which became ingrained since his childhood. By the time he was 9 or 10 years old, he could tell of different grades of yarn and cotton and linen and fabric and whatnot. And then when he started going to school, this was narrated to me by Lalit himself several occasions. In fact, when I was head of strategy and corporate communication, I translated all of this into lots of investor pitches also, because we would be doing fundraise. V-Mart already came out with this IPO in 2013, blockbuster IPO, listed at 220 rupees, touched a high of 4,500 rupees 2 years back, without any share split. So he would tell me that when he came back from school, afternoon siesta is when his father would take a nap, or then he would be managing the shop for the next 2-3 hours. Imagine a 12, 13-year-old kid managing a whole shop full of people. and staff, managing the counter, servicing customers, talking to them, understanding their needs, showing them around. Even before he hit his 18th year, he had already become some sort of a small entrepreneur in fashion retail and understanding of fabric and textile. Then he decided, so that was a tier 2, tier 3 town. Cuttack I am talking of in the late 1990s. Cuttack of early 1990s when liberalization had just started in India. And people had just started getting a flavor of what a liberalized open economy meant for them in terms of consumption potential and opportunities. I'm talking of that era. It was a really big deal then for you to think of walking into a store that was not a roadside mom and pop kirana store. Imagine, I know that in this group, many people are of more or less my age or some of you are maybe a few years older even. Imagine the 1990s India, the thrill of getting into a Bata store in a tier 2 or 3 town, right? We really looked forward to that as kids. That feel of getting into a small retail store where neat, nice shelves of products were stacked neatly and you are picking things from there. For today's generation, all of this is so obvious that they will feel as if we are talking of a dinosaur age. But all of this was like less than 3 decades back. So that is the era where Lalit saw that the aspiration in tier 2 towns was as much, if not more, that existed in tier 1 towns and metros. People in tier 2 and 3 towns aspired to have that consumption experience of a retail mall, of an organized retail shop. And he asked himself that why can't we offer this retail mall-like experience of shopping for fashion apparel to tier 2 and 3 town dwellers? That was his problem statement. That there is an unmet need gap, not even an undermet. There is an unmet need gap because nothing existed then in tier 2, 3 towns akin to a retail mall-like store. If you wanted to buy fashion apparel, you walked into a dingy shop somewhere where you were literally rubbing shoulders with other people, trying to manage your way through the aisle, and things were kept in a haphazard, shabby manner, and you had to pick whatever you wanted from that huge pile of clothes. And here comes a V-Mart retail store, exactly neat shelves and aisles. You are greeted by someone, the exact mall-like experience that you get. You walk inside a store in a mall. And that's what he recreated in tier 2, 3 towns. He started, so 2003 onwards, consciously as a choice, he started targeting these small towns and cities in Uttar Pradesh and Bihar. Why Uttar Pradesh and Bihar? Because these 2 states has the highest population density, also the highest population in India. So the catchment that he was targeting was people who were aspirational, but their income was far short of their aspiration. That's where the concept of affordable fashion came in, value fashion. That these are people who are very aspirational about wearing fashionable clothing, but they don't have the money to buy fashionable clothes. And therefore, how can I address that need? So value fashion or affordable fashion, retail mall-like offering, targeting tier 2, 3 towns, middle class and lower middle class people, for whom it was beyond their means till then to aspire to buy, let's say Diwali Dussehra festival is approaching and I want to buy fashion apparel for my entire family. I have a budget of 1,000 rupees way back then or even lesser than that. How can I buy clothes for the entire family for Diwali Dussehra festive occasion, some celebration like a marriage in the family? How can I buy fashionable clothes but in my budget, and for which I don't have to travel to a large town or city because that adds to my expense? Then the entire family travels. Half of my budget will be exhausted in traveling, staying there, coming back. So accessibility was a challenge. He addressed that. Affordability was a challenge. If you think of design thinking criteria, accessibility was a big design thinking criterion. He addressed that. So he said, you don't have to travel to the nearest big town or city. The retail mall-like store comes to your doorstep. Within 2-3 kilometers of wherever you are, we have a store. And to ensure that the accessibility improved, V-Mart would open a store in a city. Like if you go to Lucknow, V-Mart has 24 stores just in Lucknow and nearby areas. Between Lucknow and Kanpur, V-Mart has 24 stores. If you go to Patna, V-Mart has about 8 or 10 stores. So what V-Mart started doing, we called it the milk booth strategy. Milk booth strategy of expansion, which means you open a store and within 50 kilometers from that store, you open the next store, max. At times within 5 kilometers or 8 kilometers, but within store 1 to store 2, take a 50 kilometer radius, and in that radius, open a large number of stores. So that you've got the entire catchment, and this catchment is of people, you have high population density, very high levels of aspiration, but low income levels.
But I have a doubt. How this works for in a fashion apparel segment? Because when he is opening the stores, in every catchment area. So fashion is one thing where usually people expect that the product should not be repeated.
Yeah.
If you come across a person wearing the same shirt.
This is fast fashion we are talking about, yes.
So how did it work for him in those days?
Yes, so within fashion apparel, Ranjit, there are 3 grades of fashion. So we called it basic, premium, and luxury, which means basic would mean all of us would have some version of a white t-shirt or a black t-shirt in our wardrobe, right? Or a shirt, black shirt or white shirt. All of us would have, irrespective of rich, poor, all of us would have some version of a blue denim in our wardrobe, right? We would have some sort of a formal black trouser or blue trouser in, right? So there are things which you must have in your wardrobe. We called it basic. So the basic fashion, Ranjit, does not really change over the years. More or less, I mean, a bit of design element changes, and like slim fit is in vogue today. 5 years down the line, it may be more relaxed fit. So then you would say, okay, in basic, I am going to offer a slim fit. I am going to offer a relaxed fit. So the basic fashion expectations or needs don't change frequently.
So they are like forever designs.
Yes, like certain disruptive events, basic fashion needs can change. I'll give you an example. When COVID pandemic struck, we were in touch with, because through store managers, we were in touch with a lot of customers, interviewing them on phone, and we saw that there was an immediate need that came up of formal home wear, because a lot of people were working from home. So they could not really wear their home apparel to sit in front of a laptop and be in a call. So we realized that people wanted to have comfortable, relaxed wear, but still not their trousers and shirt or trousers and t-shirt at home. So we created what we called a lounge wear collection. Lounge wear is, for instance, comfortable pajamas or trousers which are slightly loose, which you can wear at home, which you can sit and work also. And we created these kurtas and certain upper wear for men and women, which would look like a semi-formal top or a casual top or a t-shirt with collar, like a polo collar. So we said that let's create these upper and lower combinations which become home wear, home work combinations. Now, if you look at hybrid work culture, which has become a permanent phenomenon across the globe, most companies have some form of 2 days from office, 3 from home, or 3 from office, 2 from home combination now. So if you look at your own wardrobe, it would have changed to that extent post-pandemic. Our wardrobe now has some collection which is not strictly formal wear, not something we would wear to office, but also not strictly home wear, not something you would wear on a Saturday or Sunday if you're not working. It is somewhere in the middle. You know, during COVID pandemic, Anand Mahindra's pic, I remember, went viral, where he was wearing a lungi, that was his lower, and a formal shirt on top. And he shared that pic, it went viral at the peak of the first wave of lockdown pandemic, that I just attended a board meeting in this attire. So he had a tie and formal shirt, that was his upper wear, but he had a lungi underneath. And many of us would have experimented with these things during the pandemic. So basic fashion expectations and needs, only disruptive events can change that. For instance, you find in lots of offices post-pandemic, in most offices, formal wear has become extinct. Even management team members, I've seen in consulting firms where it used to be very, very formal and even suit and tie kind of culture. Post-pandemic, even top bosses and partners, it's very common to see them on a regular day in jeans and t-shirt. It can be polo t-shirt, not like a U or a round neck t-shirt, but it's become very common. You would have seen that around you. Your senior bosses are also loosening up. It's not so stiff and formal anymore, even in very, very hierarchical formal organizations. So that too is a permanent shift that has happened at workplace. There's an informalization of attire that has happened post-pandemic. So that's a basic shift, which means fashion apparel companies, if you are focusing on workwear, then you will have to change your workwear collection accordingly, because there is a permanent shift that has happened in workplace and in society. But these kind of shifts, maybe in 20 years, you will have one or two such disruptive events. Largely, basic fashion remains very, very constant. Right. The second one that I refer to is premium collection. Premium collection is where, for specific occasions, you are creating a whole range of apparel combinations. For instance, wedding, festivals, gifting. So typically, there are these three occasions where people buy fashion apparel, where they go overboard, where they save for it. It is some sort of a celebration occasion like wedding, anniversary, birthdays, festivals, and high and achievement milestones in life. For instance, somebody gets a promotion. There is a admission somebody gets in some prestigious college, moves from school to college. These are occasions where these are big life milestones and wardrobe changes happen. And the third range we had collected, we had created, this was an exclusive luxury kind of a range, which was the highest priced items, things that you will have, you will buy on a few occasions in your life and they will stay. For instance, when we buy a tweed jacket or a coat, or in general, when you buy expensive woolen wear or winter wear, we are buying it with the perspective of a few years in our wardrobe, it must spend. In some cases, it spends 10 plus years also. If you look at unless you put on so much weight that it is ill-fitting now, you would have your most expensive suits and jackets being dry cleaned and stored securely for the last 10, 15 years. So this is exclusive luxury because this is where people are spending. It's more of an investment in your wardrobe. Like a leather jacket you will buy. I mean, you won't buy 10 leather jackets. A typical person, even an affluent person, will probably buy 2 or 3 genuine leather jackets in his or her lifetime. And that's so is that addressing your question, Ranjit? Yeah. Right. So within fast fashion also, there are these 3 different categories. Uniqlo is an example, is one of the largest fast fashion companies globally. Uniqlo, Zara, these are biggest fast fashion companies, where every 2.5 months they do a complete overhaul of their product portfolio. But the basic fashion collection still does not go through that frequent overhaul. So let me move on to the V-Mart case study, what exactly we did. So we were asking the question, and that's the slide here you see. Very famous quote by the renowned David Ogilvy, so father of advertising. He says, the customer is not a moron, she is your wife. Very thought-provoking statement. Anyone who can comment on what he meant by this statement, the customer is not a moron, she is your wife?
She is always right.
Okay. Demanding.
Yeah, it's Saturday afternoon, so we would rather be politically correct. All the
very demanding, very demanding.
And boyfriends in this forum. Yes, Irshad?
Very demanding. The customer is very demanding.
Okay, that's one perspective. What else?
Your wife is not a moron.
Yes. So, which means your spouse, wife or husband, let me replace the wife with spouse, that she is your spouse. So your spouse is supposed to know you inside out, right? And you can't take him or her for granted. Which is what will be implied, that companies and marketeers who think that they can peddle anything to their customer, and the customer is gullible enough to fall for it. Maybe it would work once or twice, but eventually you will be caught. So what he was implying, very valuable 2 lessons or insights. One, that you have to really invest time and effort in understanding your customer, their needs, their wants, which they may not be expressing openly. You have to get to know them so well, just like you would your spouse, right? Your spouse may not always verbalize what they want, but because they are your spouse, husband or wife, you have to invest the time and effort in understanding what their need is and catering to it. In that sense, you can't take them for granted. The second thing was implying is the customer is very, very intelligent. We may be catering to, at VMart, I was discussing, I remember after joining the company as the head of strategy and custom and corporate communication, my very first interaction with board of directors, where they welcomed me and they were sharing with me what their expectations were from this role. So this discussion we were having, because our target audience was not very well educated. VMart's core customer audience, the target TG, target group, is middle class, lower middle class, somebody who at most you would expect is a graduate, very unlikely to be a postgraduate. The main breadwinner may not even be in a stable salaried job, maybe in a contractual job, maybe a small business owner, maybe an auto rickshaw or a cab guy. Okay. So these are people who are not very well educated. They may not be very well exposed to the world. And therefore, we may start thinking how much my customer knows about fashion. I can dump anything on this customer and they would be elated to have that. But the implication of what Ojilbi is saying here is that the customer is your spouse, that your customer may not be very sophisticated and elegant and literate and man or woman of the world, knowledgeable. But you have to treat your customer with respect. You have to assume that the customer has the innate intelligence and understanding of fashion choices they want to make. And they are comparing you with your competition. So when a person walks inside a V-Mart store, it's very likely they will go to a One India Mart store also, a V-Bazaar store also, a Reliance retail store also. Before they spend that $1,500 or $2,000, they will visit 3-4 places, and now they will also go online. And therefore, over time, the customer becomes intelligent because they are comparing you with your competitors. That itself makes them so intelligent. They are able to evaluate options. मेरे को इस दाम में ये चीज मिल रही है, यहाँ पे यहाँ ये मिल रहा है. And I have had interaction with customers in stores where somebody who you would say is from the cattle class, probably earning 12,000 rupees in a month, not more, contractual worker, comes inside a store, touches a fabric and say, आपका ये वाला टी-शर्ट का कपड़ा पतला है, V-Bazaar का कपड़ा ज़्यादा मोटा है. How does that matter to the customer? Because this t-shirt that I am selling would probably last 15 washes in a cheap detergent powder bucket में डाल के, and the other apparel from my competitor would last 30 washes with the same cheap detergent powder. This customer does not have a washing machine. Even if they have a washing machine, they are using some cheap detergent powder, not Ariel. And therefore, the fabric quality has to sustain through 20-30 washes at least. Assume that this is a person who has 4 such t-shirts in the wardrobe. And once a week consumption or usage of t-shirt means 360 plus occasions in the year when one t-shirt is being. So the question is, if the t-shirt is not lasting for even 6 months, the customer would have serious questions about your quality. So will your t-shirt last 140 to 150 washes before it starts fraying? If your t-shirt is not lasting that much and your competitor's t-shirt, for which the person may have paid 40 rupees, 50 rupees more, is lasting much longer, then the customer is not coming back to you. These are very practical considerations. How is your customer evaluating you compared to your competitor if you're not aware of that as a company? How will you offer those attributes to the customer? Because of all these reasons, we said we want to know our customer. So we initiated what we called a Know Your Customer, a KYC exercise. We had a company-wide data analytics platform already in place. So every single transaction happening in the organization to the POS point of sales terminals was connected to our logistics warehouse. And we had all of the data we wanted to see at a store level, at a regional level, at a state level. We got all the cuts of data. But that was quantitative understanding. If I ask questions like, the father who is buying apparel for his children, what are the unmet needs and buying motivations of this father? How frequently is this father visiting a V-Mart store or a competitor store in the year to buy apparel for his children? Why is he buying apparel for his children? What does he look for when he buys apparel for his children? What kind of a budget and frequency does he have? Where is he dissatisfied? What is not available for him easily? Same question for a mother buying apparel for her children. Same questions or similar questions for a college-going youth who has just started with first year of graduation. Because as a company, we focused on what we called youth and young families. That was our demographic target audience, youth and young families. Young families meant that it is the couple plus if there are children, then these children are school going, they've yet not entered college. We classified, so typically you would expect such families to be in the age group of 30 to 45 years. Because tier 2-3 towns, people get married early, in their late 20s at most. So by the time they're 30, 31, they have one kid and maybe another kid a few years down the line. So our sense was that 15, 16 years of schooling, which means about mid-40s is the upper limit and about late 20s, mid to late 20s. So 25 years to 45 years, more or less, was the age band, which we said young family. This is a young family age band. And college and college-going youth is self-explanatory. We said this is somebody who has completed schooling, so moved out of young family and is now a youth. So there is a transition period between you moving from a young family to going through your college experience and then starting your own family. So that was the youth. This was our target audience. It does not mean that we were not welcoming those more than 40 years old into our store or we did not have any apparel for such people. But that was maybe 5-10% of our overall merchandise. As a company, we were catering to youth and young families. But within this youth, if I asked you what is the aspiration of a college-going youngster who is 18 or 19 years old in a place like Patna or Lucknow or Ara or Chhapra or Champaran, what is the aspiration of this youth? Why would this youth come to a V-Mart store to spend his precious pocket money compared to going to a competitor's store? What would make this person loyal to us? All of that insight was not available through our data analytics architecture. It gave us quantitative understanding. These are questions that board members wanted to address. So this was my very first mandate. In fact, I had two big mandates upon joining the company. The first was this, and the second was, have you heard of Balanced Scorecard? Norton and Kaplan, Balanced Scorecard.
Yes.
Anyone? So, Balanced Scorecard is a very renowned strategy framework to enhance operational excellence and strategic execution in an organization. So the second big mandate for me was to implement Balanced Scorecard framework and link it with performance appraisal system in the organization. So in this project, I was working very closely with HR head. This was a strategy plus HR project. So we next 12 months, it took us almost 1.5 years to completely implement Balanced Scorecard template organization-wide. And this is where I had to collaborate and work shoulder to shoulder with the HR team, because all of our performance appraisal, performance measurement architecture had to be overhauled and brought within the framework of balanced scorecard. That was the second concurrently running big initiative upon joining, and the first one was this: that how can we develop a qualitative understanding of our customers? That's how we arrived at the persona canvas. What you are seeing here is something we arrived at after almost 9 months of consumer research exercise across 10 states, 80 to 90 retail stores, involving more than 2,000 customer interviews and at least 120 focus group discussions and about 70 to 80 home visits. We even visited homes of, this is called ethnographic research. If you go back to what is, what if, what was, and what works, right now I am at what is stage, understanding the current reality. So in understanding the current reality, persona creation, customer journey mapping, ethnographic research, where you are trying to understand unaddressed need gaps, pain points of your users, all of this is a part of understanding the current reality. So we were trying to understand what are the expectations, need gaps, met, unmet of our target audience, and can we create these clusters or segments of customers who were visiting our stores. So these are personas. This is a qualitative approach or ethnographic approach to segmenting your customers. But this approach is very user-centric, customer-centric. Typical customer segmentation is from the company's perspective. Demographics-based segmentation that you saw on the earlier slide. This segmentation approach is company perspective. This is how we are looking at our customers. This is not the entirety of what they are. What you are looking at now is user-centric, is customer-centric. This is what they are in their daily life. And I will show you a few persona summaries. Here is one. Just spend some time going through it. So this persona, based on all of the ethnographic exercise, we did consumer research exercise over 9 months. That's where BCG, Boston Consulting Group, was helping us, because they had done this kind of execution for lots of FMCG and retail companies globally. So they helped us design the entire consumer research exercise, but the implementation I was driving through our store managers. I personally would have visited about 25-30 homes, looking into wardrobes of our customers, obviously for which informed consent was taken, like proper forms and signatures were taken, and data confidentiality and privacy measures were adopted. I would have conducted at least 20 focus group discussions myself, and these were happening in retail stores, not in a third location, not in their home, not in a third location, but in retail stores. So some of our retail stores, like in Varanasi, one of our oldest stores has a large area on the ground floor where we would create a nice setup and we would have snacks and everything arranged. And we would invite some of our customers from our loyalty database, loyalty program database. 12 to 15 customers would be invited with their family members. It would be a large focus group discussion gathering of about 25-30 people. And the FGD would be video recorded. We did about 120 of these, and there were about 2,000 plus customer interviews we did inside our stores, inside competitor stores, for which we hired market research agencies. For within our store interviews, our store staff was trained to do it. Store managers, there is a onboarding exercise we did at our head office in Gurugram. We called all store managers. We rolled out the initiative. There was a 3-day training program we took them to on how to conduct ethnographic research in their stores. And then they went back, they trained their store staff to do this. That's how the implementation happened. But are you looking at, so that it was, I think the case mentioned, there were about 80-90 pages of as a report, and lots of slides in the presentation we made to the board of directors. But this is just a summary slide of this persona, noting that each of these boxes you are seeing, like buying motivations, pages and pages of pics and customer verbatims and information from multiple locations. So behind each persona, there is the backup data and information runs into several pages. And the interview transcripts, FGD transcripts, that would run into like dozens and dozens of pages. Has anyone done an exercise like this in your career? Qualitative research where you've used ethnographic approaches like these? Let me show you another persona. This one is Mom Knows Best Warrior. The one which is my favorite is this one, Pepi Pinto. This is the college-going youth. First or second year of graduation. So a persona is an exemplification, which means it is not a real person, but an example of the whole customer segment which is like this. It's an exemplification of a type of customer. It's not a person. So a typical person who falls into Pepi Pinto persona would display these characteristics. This person is going to have a certain kind of a wardrobe. This person is going to be motivated by certain desires and expectations when he is shopping for fashion apparel. And if I can cater better than my competition to this person's desires and expectations, obviously there is much more loyalty I will create. Okay, over to you. What are your thoughts and impressions so far? What I have described to you? How do you think a business like V-Mart Retail can use this information which is coming from what is stage? Let's get to what is stage. You have certain insights generated from customer journey mapping, persona creation, ethnographic studies. How will you use this? That is where the caselet concludes. How are we going to use all of this insight for driving business outcomes? This is another interesting persona, aspiring bubbly.
So basically, this is part of the. Using this persona mapping, V-Mart is trying to understand what kind of offerings do they provide, not just product, but pricing. What kind of what avenue should they be having? Is it just offline, or should they also have online possibilities? For example, for Pepi Pinto, it might be the online channel, right? So, what kind of distribution strategy should they adopt? And pricing, basically covering the 4 P's, how you're addressing the customer needs.
Yeah. So I remember one of the interesting conversations I had with the Pepi Pinto in Patna, which also happens to be my hometown. So our biggest store in Patna, which was then doing more than 20 crore in annual sales on 2 floors, massive store, about 18,000 square feet. A typical V-Mart store used to be about 8,000 square feet. So for us, this was a large format store, a showcase store. This was right in the heart of what is college district in Patna, one of the college districts. There are 2 main college districts. This was in one of those 2 college districts, surrounded by a few old-time colleges and lots of coaching institutes and paying guest accommodations. So I remember this conversation with a Pepi Pinto persona. So this is a guy who belongs to, whose hometown is a tier 4 town in Bihar. And he is the first generation in his family to have stepped out of the agricultural rural confines and pursue a graduation in a large city setup like this. And his aspiration is, after completing graduation, to prepare for competitive exams and build a career in life living in the metro cities. So he happens to tell me that this is like he was sharing this in Hindi. So I will give you both Hindi and English version. His Hindi version was कि जब college जाते हैं हम, so because this is Bihari Hindi is हम, like many of you will be familiar. जब हम college जाते हैं, जब college में अंदर जाते हैं, entry करते हैं, गाड़ी लगा के, अपना bike लगा के, तो हमको अच्छा लगता है जब कोई आके बोलता है आज तो बड़ा अच्छा टी-शर्ट पहने हो, कहाँ से लिए? Right. So basically implying that when I'm entering my college campus after parking my bike, and somebody approaches me and comments, "Oh wow, you are looking so handsome today. Where did you get this T-shirt from? It's so unique." So Pepi Pinto को इसमें kick आता है. Pepi Pinto का दिन बन गया, right? Like he is now looking forward to the day with spring in his step. And if that somebody happens to be a girl, तो उसका तो पूरा हफ्ता बन गया, दिन ही नहीं. Then he is looking forward to the week with spring in his step. वो UPSC का attempt पहले attempt में crack कर देगा, उसको that's the josh he is feeling. Right, so this is Pepi Pintu persona for you. So when I was standing in front of board of directors and I started enacting these personas to them, there was such insight, and then they said, why don't you do this exercise with individual functions in the company, in the head office? So I started doing these persona workshops. A typical workshop setup would be like this. I had these huge life-size cutouts made of personas. I got the buying and merchandising team in our boardroom. And when they entered, they were surrounded by these cutouts of 5-6 personas. I told them that this is a real customer you see on the wall there. That's the person for whom you are buying and negotiating and creating your autumn, winter, and summer, spring collection. And this is what the person desires. These are the person's life motivations. These are the person's buying motivations. This is what they're looking at extracting from life on a day-to-day basis. This is what they want to be. This is what they want to become. So fashion choices they are making are driven by this larger picture of what they see themselves as today and tomorrow. So this Pepi Pintu is also telling me कि मेरा एक wardrobe ऐसा बनाना है जहाँ पे एक अच्छा पैंट और शर्ट का कलेक्शन हो. कभी-कभी कॉलेज में जरा अच्छा दमदार एंट्री मारना होता है कि आज तो फॉर्मल पहन के आए. So now you know that this Pepi Pintu also has an aspiration and need for at least 1 to 2 formal wear collection in its wardrobe. And the formal wear collection this Pepi Pintu wants is this slim fit and ultra slim fit. Nothing that is sticking out even by an inch here or there. He wants a shirt which is neatly tucked in, trousers which are tapering like this, and where he gets a very sharp dressed feeling, and he does not want to spend more than 1,200 rupees for the upper and lower combination with a belt thrown in for good measure. Then you go back and tell your buying and merchandising team that think of a formal wear collection for college going youth within 1,200 to 1,400 rupees, which is a trouser, formal shirt. Solids is what Pepi Pintu would prefer. Usko patterns or designs nahi chahiye, usko ek solid chahiye, which means plain black, white, blue, combination with trousers, again solid. And if we can come up with some formal shoe which is within 500-600 rupees but does not look tacky or cheap, he would probably stretch his budget to 2,000 rupees, because head to toe he has got everything then. Because he is looking at the next year's summer internship interview in his college. Probably he would wear this combination 3 or 4 times in a year. Some marriage. So I remember this very interesting, funny, but also insightful conversation. Pepi Pintu is telling me, ever since I have come to Patna, when I go back to my native place, everyone comes to me and asks me, how is Patna like? What is college life like? Because it's a big deal in his family. So he was saying, कभी-कभी ऐसा होता है कि फॉर्मल कपड़े लेके घर जाए और कोई मौका मिले तो वहां पहन के घूमे. You know, just to throw my weight around, impress people that see the transformation in me. That I returned from, I'm attending college, and imagine the aspiration in this person's mind. He is living in cohabiting 2 worlds. There is this world from where he or she has come, same for aspiring bubbly. And there is this world which he is still getting used to. And some part of his wardrobe has to reflect this aspiration in him. Because we dress as much, particularly youth, they dress as much for their pleasure as the pleasure they feel when they are complimented for what they are wearing. It's really important. I mean, why should we assume that this Instagram obsession is something which is limited to tier 1 and metros? Tier 2 and 3 towns are comparably, if not more, Instagram crazy. They also want to post those pics of themselves where they show their aspirational side. What if they don't have the money to show it? Can we give them something for the amount that they have? You know, so we started having these conversations in our company. We started thinking of what is the collection we want to build for a Pepi Pintu. Pepi Pintu ka wardrobe kaisa hona chahiye, and can V-Mart be that company which is creating the entire wardrobe for Pepi Pintu? Festivals, daily wear, and celebratory occasions. Can we create a wardrobe for Pepe Pinto? So we started creating these. Is anyone from fashion industry? We have something called as a look book. Have you heard of this term, look book? Anyone? You can even search for it quickly online. You will find some examples what a look book looks like. Let me just share a link with you. We started actually creating look books for these persona. Okay, here I am sharing it on screen. Okay, so see, this is what a look book would look like. You get an idea now? So we gave an exercise to our buying and merchandising team, design team, marketing team. We said, you remember this GE Adventure Series person was saying he created a cross-functional team. Any design thinking led project has to be a cross-functional project. Why am I saying that? Why should a design thinking led project be a cross-functional project? Think about
everyone say has to come in, right? In this example,
why is that vital?
Yeah, different perspectives.
Unless there could be if not, there could be possibility for bias.
Okay. What else? Same approach was followed by Salesforce Ignite. It was a cross-functional team they created, a team which could work cross-functionally. I'll give you a hint, user centricity. Remember, customer centric. Design thinking is customer centric. What do customers want? Any user or customer, what do they want? Like in this case, Sharad, are you on mute? I think
I was saying that right product as per the need, right product or service.
Absolutely. So this Pepe Pinto, what does this guy want? He wants to enter his college campus, make an impression with his fashion choices, but in his budget. He does not want a regular jeans. He wants a jogger jeans. At that point in time, I remember jogger jeans had become really popular with college-going youth. Jogger jeans with floaters and t-shirt look was really popular in tier 2-3 towns because it gave them some kind of, it made them feel like some sort of a on-screen movie persona celebrity. Very cool, attending classes in jogger jeans and t-shirt and floaters. That trend lasted for about 2-3 years. It is still popular, but it was a craze then in college campuses, in tier 2-3 towns. So for you to come up with a solution that is customer centric, all the functions have to work together. They have to join hands. So marketing team has to come up with marketing campaigns that would appeal to Pepe Pinto, but it can't be just the front end. The product has to fit into that marketing campaign. The product designers have to work on it, and they can't work on this unless the buying and merchandising team is aligned, because they are the ones talking to suppliers. They will brief suppliers about what kind of apparel and designs to create. And then the front-end team, which is retail operations team, is the team that has to be aligned with every other department, because they are the ones who are creating the front-end experience. A customer walks in Pepe Pinto in a store and says, this is the kind of apparel I want and this is the budget I have. Then the customer service, the executive, the front end, the last mile connect between the organization and the customer should be well trained to explain the product merchandise to Pepe Pinto. Should be able to explain the concept to Pepe Pinto. He is not looking for a jeans or a t-shirt. He is looking for a look, right? In fashion industry, you are not selling apparel, you are selling a look. And the look has to be a cross-functional collaboration. That's why it's called a lookbook. What you're seeing here is a look being created. Fashion lookbook. It's a very interesting exercise. I mean, NID grads do this day in and day out. I worked a lot with such teams, because when I started creating workshops, I would invite representatives from all the functions. And then they would sit and debate through. So we then gave exercises. We then had the B-plan competitions in the company. We created teams and we assigned one persona to each team. And we said, you have 15 days. Come back after 15 days and present a lookbook to us for this persona. The lookbook for each persona must address what are their wardrobe needs. What should their wardrobe look like? And then we will go to, okay, how does V-Mart come up with a merchandise portfolio that wardrobe which our persona wants. Then your buying and merchandising, your inventory management, all of it is driven by the customer. You have become customer centric as an organization. It's not driven by the supplier. It's being driven by your understanding of the customer. It is bottom up. We are not forcing things on each retail store, 300 plus retail stores. Okay, retail stores, it's bottom up. We are understanding what is it that each retail store wants. So we then started mapping retail stores to dominant personas. For instance, this retail store in the college district of Patna I was describing, we found, when we looked at data analytics-led insight, we found that the kind of apparel that had been selling there for last so many years, 60% of that fell into Pepe Pinto persona wardrobe collection. So triangulation, right? Because we said that this is a store where Pepe Pinto persona is dominant or aspiring bubbly is dominant, and we found this was reflected in the kind of apparel being sold from that store. Majority of sales was coming from the kind of apparel that Pepe Pinto or aspiring bubbly would buy. So then we said, okay, the entire look and feel of the store from a distance, what we call the signage and outside look, and the visual merchandising. When you enter a store, the inner ambience and look is called DM, visual merchandising. We said all of this has to be geared to being a very youthful store. It can't look like an Uncle G store. No disparaging way of saying Uncle G. I am myself an Uncle G, but don't take offense on that word. But we said this store should be a very vibrant, youthful store. Because it is the dominant personas it is catering to are these 2-3, which is college going. Yes, Sharad, go ahead.
So when the data is available based on the historical sales data, you can define, okay, which persona types is buying more and then accordingly customize it.
Yes.
But what was the approach when you were opening a new store? Because the demographics is not available, right? So what was the approach?
So let me show you a video. Very, very interesting question, and I am excited to share a video which I had not planned originally. So give me a minute. I need to look for it quickly. Just stay with me. Very interesting question, Sharad, and I respect your question to the extent that I am going to answer it in all honesty with a real life example. So which is, or at least till recently, which city used to be considered the coaching capital of India?
Kota.
Absolutely. So, Sharad, the question you asked, we were planning to open a store in Kota. We did not have any presence there, right? We are planning to open our first store. And exactly the question you asked was uppermost on our mind. Our hypothesis was what? That Kota is the coaching district of India. So you would assume this is a Pepe Pinto aspiring bubbly, right? That's your hypothesis. And the reality won't be too far from this hypothesis. But the question is, how do we go about launching a new store, our flagship store in Kota? So I will show you the launch video of this store, which gives you an walking inside the aisle peak. We created this video for investors because every quarter at the end of the quarter, when quarterly results would be declared, I, the CFO of the company, and the CMD, three of us would fan out and we would go to Mumbai, Hong Kong, at times Dubai and London also, to meet institutional investors and analysts. We split up locations between us. So when we were visiting these places for investor meets and analyst meets, these are very high profile, influential financial analysts we are talking about. So I would be, in preparation for these conversations, I would have some recent videos created of our stores. Like behind the scenes video, BTS videos also, real customer launch videos, customer interviews, testimonials. So this Kota video I'm going to share, we had just launched our store in Kota and we said that this is looking really fancy. Yes. Okay. So we said, why don't we share it with financial analysts and investors? All of you can see my screen now?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm playing it for you. So we call this store Fashion Dial-Up. So that's a new segment of stores we created. We said wherever we are going to amp up the fashion quotient, the edginess and the youthfulness and vibrancy, we call that a level up fashion we are offering. So we called it Fashion Dial-Up. We are dialing it up. So Kota was an example of a fashion dial-up store. We called it Project Fashion Dial-Up. So this is still very much an affordable fashion store, but you can clearly see the design language and the merchandise collection. It is very, very trendy and edgy. We also took a bit of a creative leap because we were trying to push the envelope in saying that even though a large number of students come from very traditional backgrounds and even from orthodox background, can we push the envelope a bit in having a higher fashion sensibility created in our audience? So you would see that also reflected in our store layout and visual merchandise and fashion merchandise collection. Yes, and thoughts, Sharad, your question is addressed. How do we go about, for a new store, we did a lot of catchment survey. The same exercise of ethnographic studies, but in this case, we did not have a presence there. So we proactively conducted consumer research just to validate our hypothesis, understand better that are we seeing any new persona here that we might not have captured earlier? Or is it on the expected lines that we would see college-going youth-focused 3-4 personas reflected? And followed by family audiences to some extent.
My question, so you answered it, like Kota was an example where, okay, the demographic really talks about it, right? But for example, let's say when you opened up a store in, let's say, Ara, or there getting these kind of data wouldn't have been possible, right? So that was my question, actually.
Yes, so at a catchment level, your user research here translates to consumer research. At a catchment level, why are you saying it wouldn't be possible? We opened stores in Northeast. We had no presence there. We started with Assam and then we started expanding further up.
Okay.
No presence in Northeast, no understanding of Northeast. And those of you who have some experience traveling to Northeast, or if you are from that part of India, Northeast is like several generations ahead of rest of India in fashion. Okay, and also because it is most of Northeast, also a lot of Northeast is matriarchal. So women are also much more liberated. The society is far more progressive. Even though they may not be highly educated, certain parts of it, you would find that fashion choices of women in Northeast will be considered a bit scandalous in a lot of states like in UP, Bihar, Haryana kind of places, Rajasthan. So we had to operate with a very different mindset when we were opening stores. The interpretation of fashion there in a Kohima or a Sikkim or Gangtok or Shillong, the interpretation of fashion, what is considered fashionable in UP would be considered backward there. Like it was so common for girls in Northeast to expect a sleeveless white tee with a plunging neckline, and you try selling it in Badayu in UP or any place in UP Bihar even today. It would go unsold. You have to write off that inventory.
That makes sense.
Right?
So the secondary research data which you collect, like, is it like company does those initiatives, or is the databases available from where you kind of draw these insights?
So you mean to say like consumer databases which we can subscribe to?
Yeah.
Yes. So some of the modeling exercises we did in the company, we were subscribing to these two. There is Hansa Research, and we had this AC Nielsen. AC Nielsen is very common because AC Nielsen has become pretty exhaustive by now. There are 700 plus districts in India, and I remember AC Nielsen had demographic data. See, the last census in India happened in 2011. Because of the pandemic, the census that is being conducted is yet delayed. It's not been published. So last 14 years, census is a decadal exercise. But as of now, we are delayed by 4 years on that decadal exercise. So the most recent data of census that is available to you, if you are a consumer-centric organization, FMCG, retail kind of a place, consumer durables, the most recent data available through census is 14 years old. What do you do with that data?
Correct.
So willy-nilly you have to go to these databases. So AC Nielsen was already offering district level data. See, for a company like V-Mart, even district level data was not good enough, because we are operating at a unit or two lower than district level. We are operating at a town or a Mofussil level, and that data was not available even with AC Nielsen in most cases. But the best shot we had was we would get about 550 plus districts. District level data was already available with AC Nielsen. They had an offering, even within their subscription, a value-added offering. I'm forgetting the name, through which we got access to that data. We took that data as the baseline data, and then catchment level tweaks we made in our assumptions based on our store level understanding and insights, because most places like these we have been operating for 5 years, 10 years, or even longer. So we changed, for instance, we said, okay, in this district, the proportion of college-going youth and family is not 60-40, it's 40-60. So we made those tweaks at our end to arrive at the addressable market size. Idea was that for every store, we should be able to do a dominant persona mapping. So if we had 300 plus stores, we said, can we arrive at top 2-3 personas for each store? So what we did, we called all store managers once again to Gurugram. We did a 3-day workshop, and we put store managers into teams of 10. And we said, for your store, what is your hypothesis? So we introduced these personas to them. And we said, for your store, your hypothesis, like hazard a guess, that what do you think? And if you are a recently promoted or posted store manager, call up your oldest people in the store. Come back with an answer on what are the 2 or 3 dominant personas for your store. We started with that hypothesis. Anybody who knows his or her store well enough won't be too far from what the reality is. But then we did not stop there. We said, this is our initial hypothesis. This is our working hypothesis. Then we went back to the analytics data we had. What is selling in these stores? That we had for the last almost 7 years already. 7 years back, Manthan Analytics, which is a Bangalore-based company, had implemented the data analytics architecture in V-Mart. Enterprise-wide architecture. Our POS terminals were connected to the warehouse, so it was enterprise-wide. And we had combined Manthan Analytics backend, data analytics backend, with this Power BI and one more visualization platform. Power BI was one, and Sorry? Tableau, yes. So we had both Power BI and Tableau subscription, which was showing us dashboards the way we, at head office, 12, 13 of us, the CMD, CEO, and 11 of us in the leadership team, we had access to all kinds of data. So if I wanted to see a dashboard for a selection of stores in UP or Bihar and wanted to compare it for a specific range of products with a store in Northeast, I could do that sitting here. And sitting here in head office, you could see at a store level, at a city level, state level, country level, all kinds of cuts and slices that you wanted. So if store managers did a mapping and said, okay, my store, their hypothesis is that my store is an aspiring, bubbly, peppy Pinto plus doting dad persona. So let's say 60% of my sales comes from these three personas. By then, we had already completed our exercise of what is a doting dad wardrobe, what is a peppy Pinto wardrobe. Doting dad wardrobe is not for himself. There is a difference between customer and consumer here. Doting dad is a customer. The consumer is doting dad's kids. So we said doting dad wardrobe is actually doting dad's kids wardrobe. So we said if the peppy Pinto persona, as the store manager is saying, is one of the dominant personas, it means that the kind of denims that is selling here is slim fit denims, not relaxed fit. Majority of denim sales here should be slim fit. So we created these algos because we knew that peppy Pinto wardrobe would have these 8 or 10 as dominant fashion choices. It should reflect. So we created algos like formulas that the analytics team created. They said for this chosen formula, these stores that comply with this formula would show up in a list. And if in that list this store is not there, then we would question the store manager and say, you are saying it's a dominant peppy Pinto persona, but we are not seeing it in the kind of apparel you are selling. How do you
challenging the hypothesis back?
Right. So the hypothesis was validated. More than 80% cases it was validated, and the rest we had to do some manual tweaks. So in many cases it was also an insight to us, because our assumption was that simply because this store is located in a college-going district, we would see peppy Pinto aspiring bubbly, and what we are seeing is family buying personas dominant. That was an insight for us. The hypothesis not being validated was an equally valuable insight. So that's how we were doing this validation of at each store. Once we had that understanding, then our strategy, the 7 P's of services, as we say: product, price, place, promotion, physical evidence, process, people. Then our 7 P strategy became more store specific. It was almost like a decentralization and more customer centricity at a store level. Because even Zara says that retail business is a very catchment focused business. Even for a global retail company, it is at a catchment level what is happening in that store decides the fate of that store. Any other inputs or questions on this whole DMart caselet? Anything else that comes to your mind? What other implications do you think may be there for the company of how can we use this customer persona and journey mapping? We also created journey maps for each persona. Those journey maps are visual diagrams, so I can't show it here on screen because it's so minute, nothing would make sense to you. Huge wall size, I mean, almost an 11-12 feet long journey map. I remember we would be having these meetings. 12 feet long wall on which we had a whiteboard, digital whiteboard, and I would start on the left-hand side with a cross-functional team seated in the room. And I would be the facilitator. This is a brainstorming kind of a meeting I'm talking about. And I would start asking questions around, okay, where is the customer journey starting for peppy Pinto? From left-hand side, we would go on sketching each milestone in the journey map and at the right-hand side. And eventually, when there would be consensus in the room, then we would call more senior team members, like my colleague from leadership team. And I would say, okay, we are locking in peppy Pinto customer journey map. This is what CFT teams have given. Can you now review this and give us what your observations are. So we would finalize that, and then we would give this to the graphic design team to translate into a Visio diagram and do a blow up. That blow up was a printout, like a digital board printout, which would be available for all the teams internally. And it's also very, I would say, confidential information for me to display even the screenshot of it. Even I don't have access to everything that we created, but some of it I have retained with me when it was being built up. So we have a screen map also for each persona created.
I was saying that could this kind of research also help in diversifying your product portfolio? Let's say we're talking about apparel, but then you got such a lot of database that you know their choices, you know their
their living, their aspirations.
Yes. So you could even diversify your portfolio out from apparel to something else.
Very brilliant insight, Piyush. That reminds me, Mom Knows Best Warrior. You would have seen that persona I showed briefly. So Mom Knows Best Warrior, we found out in the journey map, this is a mom who is very much concerned about wellness choices. She wants to make choices that are healthy and healthful for her children. It could open up, for instance, if you are stocking FMCG and Kirana items in your store, it could open up opportunities for you to have something for Mom Knows Best Warrior and promote it to that persona. Like a Chyawanprash, which is organic, sugar nahi hai usme, kids ke liye ye bhi le jao. Give them a small free sample pack size, like a concept testing in the store. Apparel items worth 1,000 rupees, take a free 50-gram jar of this Chyawanprash we got made. Okay, and it's an in-house brand or private label, as we say in retail industry, a private label brand you launch in wellness products. Absolutely, that potential is there, yes.
One other example which I can share from my own experience is I used to work for Tesco IT department. So Tesco, how does it see a customer? A customer walks into any Tesco. If he buys less than 5 products, he's treated as an unhappy customer.
Okay, in a single transaction.
Yeah, in a single transaction. A person who walks into any Tesco should take more than 5 products, because if he walks in, so that's why Tesco, how because I was working from the IT side, so we just delve into how so they capture this information by using the Tesco club card. They have this membership card or the club card. So the club card will tell you, because you can't, that's the easier way of capturing data, though it gives you some points back to the customer and other thing, but the easiest option is, because you do thousands of billing, so it's you just swipe the club card and then you do your billing, you get all the data about this customer. So if he takes less than, so what are the products he has taken? So how they came up with this, people who come to buy milk and bread and eggs, these are 3 basic things which they look at. So they normally come, they just go take their things. So what they've done is they came up with a strategy of changing the rearranging the egg, milk and this one bread in various locations. So they keep egg in one location, bread in another location, and the milk in the last far corner. So they force the customer to walk across the entire store. So that will, so normally we are all, most of us are like, we impulse buyers. So we end up seeing, when we walk across different aisles, even if you see things which we don't even want, but still we pick it up because it just got some offer, this thing, or something, we saw some ad somewhere, so we pick it up. So this ensured that each customer who walks into the customer shop, they picked up more products. And this, they keep changing their locations every now and then. You see egg in one place this week, the next week you will not find the same place, because otherwise what will happen is this guy works in the Tesco, gets the egg, and then he knows exactly where the bread is placed, goes there and takes it and he walks away. So they just keep shuffling around. So that's the way they have changed. So that's how Tesco does to ensure that people buy more.
And is Tesco tweaking this at least 5, otherwise you are a dissatisfied customer? Is this being tweaked? The number globally, different countries may have different patterns.
I don't know exactly because I work for Tesco's in the UK. So normally they looked at from the club card information. We'll get it. We'll see how these 5 products, less than 5 products, how this thing. So that's, and then they have various offers going in other things, and even the way the products are placed in various places. So everything goes into how to ensure that a person walks in, buys more than what as many products as possible.
Okay, all right. Yes, Sharad, you wanted to ask something.
No, I was just putting a case study or some fact I read that I think Walmart or Sam's Club did a similar merchandise rearrangement exercise where they started placing diaper and beer together.
Oh yes, the famous beer and diaper story. Yes,
correct. Because any dad who was coming to buy.
What was the? So yes. So go ahead, give us the explanation. It's a very funny.
Yeah. So any dad who was coming to the store to buy a diaper, if he sees the beer on the above shelf, he was there is more probability to buy the beer as well. So that's what
I have a slightly different version of this. I heard from someone that it's a harried husband version. So you are this harried husband who at your home you have invited a few pals for watching that cricket match. In the Indian context, cricket; in the US context, maybe baseball or basketball match, the big Super Bowl day as they say. And this is the IPL final match. You've invited a few friends. So this and all of you are planning to be in the man cave and have a wild 3-4 hours of beer guzzling and watching the match, and then your wife realizes that all of this has been cooking, and she places the responsibility on you that since you are rushing to the store to buy a pack, 12 can pack of beer, okay, you are also responsible for the kid at home, newly born child, okay, so you get a pack of diapers also. So to lessen your guilt, you agree to the deal. And therefore you buy that pack of beer can as well as the diaper. As otherwise it seems so unlikely. So there are examples of how companies did correlation. It's called market basket analysis in retail parlance. That a typical basket of a customer, I think Irshad was also alluding to it with various combinations, and at times the combinations are very unlikely. Like people may buy a toothpaste with a nariyal pani, and unless you see that reflected in correlation, okay, you would not imagine it. This is that unlikely combination, but there is a logic to it. And the correlation would tell you in market basket analysis where you see strong correlations. That's an aha moment, that why am I seeing this? And then this guides the strategy of product placement and aisle mapping.
And this could be location, geography specific also, and they do a targeted approach.
Yeah. Okay. Any other experiences implementing such qualitative, quantitative approaches to understanding the user and translating that into business decision making, like the example of VMart also I shared with you, that you have faced or implemented in your career or witnessed in your career, where a qualitative, quantitative approach to understanding your customers translated into a design thinking-led solution approach to fulfilling their unmet or undermet needs and expectations.
When I was working in Vodafone, Vodafone was a brand perceived as the youth and the urban brand.
Yeah.
So when the SMS trend was going on during the SMS era, okay, we used to place all our SMS cards, top-up cards in the college areas because these top-up cards were mainly used by the students mainly. And we the products also designed in such a way that 9 rupees, some 30 SMS, which can be affordable for that student.
Okay.
So that is how the product itself was designed, keeping the customer centric. Night calling minutes were free.
Any example of co-creation you can think of where you have witnessed or been a part of some solution that was created where the customer was collaborating actively to co-create the solution as it was building up over time? Can be B2B, B2C? Yes, Ayush, go ahead.
So what happened with our company was recently we took a project and we were involved. What we do is we give HVAC and MEP services. We do the complete EPC from engineering to commissioning the project. So what happened was that the client called us for the engineering part. And it was a different kind of project. It was a sports complex, and they wanted it to be designed at a very low speed of air velocity was required there, and it was 0.2 meter per second because there was a badminton court so that the shuttle does not get deflected. So what happened was that we did the designing. And the client said that we will be calling other parties too for the bidding purpose. So they asked us that what should they do so that we don't it doesn't happen that we are not selected to execute that project. Right. So what we offered them was that what we'll do is we'll give everything to you. We'll open our books. Whatever we are purchasing, whatever we are selling to you, and whatever we are our labor cost is, we'll give everything to you. We'll be completely transparent, and we told them that we are going to have this much profit. This will be the percentage we are going to take.
This must have been unprecedented in your organization.
This was never happened, and
still really vulnerable.
Very, and I still don't know that. And I still don't know what are the. It was the client and me and my dad was sitting right there, and we were. There was a conversation between me and the architect and the client, and we came up with this idea that we are going to give you everything, each and every invoice of the product we are going to buy and going to supply at your site. And so currently we are doing exactly this thing, and they didn't go to any other vendor. They didn't went to any other person to bid for it. They thought that we as a party is completely transparent, and we told them that this much percent of profit we are going to take, and they thought that it is pretty decent. And currently, I still don't know that what are the cons of this kind of project, because somewhere else we were going to take a much bigger profit, but
now your hands are tied down.
But me personally, there is in our sector there is a big problem of clients not understanding the project technically, and they don't understand the pricing because it is a very technical project, so price varies.
We are paying for human capabilities, expertise, experience, and it is anybody's value. It can be any number.
There is a multi-specialty hospital in Ambala. If people in NCR must know it, MMU. Maharishi Markandeshwar University. So I was sitting with their owner, and he was telling us that आयुष मुझे समझ नहीं आता है कि तुम लोगों की प्राइसिंग कैसे होती है.
So this is an unmet need then. Transparency in pricing or opaqueness of pricing is a big issue for your customers. And you are applying a design thinking approach to make them co-collaborators and co-creators in the commercial structure.
And
the product you are co-designing with them, but the commercial structure, they become co-collaborators here.
What is happening is the client is not going to any other party for pricing, and because most of them are coming to us for the engineering solutions. So एक बार engineering हो जाता है तो फिर they don't go to any other party. But मुझे इसके cons नहीं पता है. I don't know कि इसमें problems क्या हैं. But मैं इसको uniformly apply करने का सोच रहा हूँ. But still there is much brainstorming to do.
So addressing the dilemma of Ayush, any inputs from the group on what could be possible cons of this experience heads here like Piyush and Irshad?
Look, I think, I think no, I don't have much experience in this, but as a person who has some age experience, I would say that in India, this kind of thing would not be very successful in terms of business itself, because our mental makeup is such that we want to take out the juice from the supplier. I don't want to give more than 1%, 2%. Now you tell them I want to take 10%, it's not haggling on that. Now that doesn't become, so you can't put value sometimes to the value to the money, or rather value to the expertise, and as a result we can, because elsewhere you could have done that. Transparency would have worked. But here the transparency works counterintuitively against you.
So what Piyush is saying, I had this batchmate of mine from IIM Lucknow. We were MBA batchmates there. He got placed with McKinsey from campus. And one of the top graders in the batch, he spent about 7 years working with McKinsey in global assignments before he moved to private equity industry. I will keep his name confidential. He is one of the youngest managing directors in private equity space in India. When he became MD, he was still in his early 30s, 33, 34. So he told me a funny incident when he had joined McKinsey and he was still doing his spaces like in junior roles at client side, learning, imbibing. McKinsey was doing some big bang project, probably one of the earliest projects in that space in QSR segment for Haldiram's. Now, Haldiram is a very moneyed client, right? But it is a traditional Baniya client. And he told me this funny conversation. It was on a lighter note, but it just goes on to show what Piyush was saying. कि आप लोग बात करने का इतना पैसा क्यों लेते हो? This is a guy, this is a Haldiram that has hired McKinsey for an 18 crore engagement, 2 साल का strategic engagement. और लाला बोल रहा है एक मीटिंग में, आप लोग बात करने का इतना पैसा क्यों लेते हो? हम तो मिठाई बेचते हैं, ये बेचते हैं, ये करते हैं. आप लोग बात करने का इतना पैसा क्यों लेते हो? आप सवाल पूछते हो, बात करते हो, हमारी चीज हम ही को पकड़ाते हो और पैसे लेते हो. Right. So how do you impute a value to something which is intangible, and the intangibles are more precious than tangible? It's taken 20 years for you to unlock that expertise, which you are now monetizing. So that could be one challenge, Ayush. So you will have to think about how do you make the intangible tangible? How do you create that feeling that the intangible is so valuable and precious that it has so much tangible value for you, and therefore you are paying this much? That's one thing you will have to do going forward. If you want to formalize and expand this kind of a commercial structure selectively, not for everyone, but where you see there is an opportunity, need, and there is a deserving person at the other end. Like Piyush mentioned, if the person is exploitative in nature, then your best intentions will be wasted.
This reminds me of one story. This reminds me of one story. Where one oil container ship, it gets grounded, and then there was some snack. So obviously they were trying to get all the engineers, and then they try out various things, and it doesn't work. So they at last somebody says that there's a very old hand in that, he can get it done. So this guy goes, he comes there He sees, he understands the problem, he taps in one place, and the ship starts working again. So it starts the engine. So, and he charges 10,000 and $1, something like that. So this guy, the ship, whoever is the captain or somebody, he asked him, why do you charge so much for a job which took you just a minute? He says, I charge $1 for the job I did, and the $10,000 is to know where exactly to tap. That's my expertise, and that's what you paid for. So that 10,000 is not for the job; it's exactly to know where to tap.
Okay. I mean, those who are in similar situations, you must remember this anecdote. What an impactful and memorable way of delivering the message.
Here what I thought was that for the consultancy purpose, we'll charge the client differently, and in case they accept us as their executor, then we'll include that consultancy charge in that execution part, so that we will not charge them for the consultancy. We'll just charge for the execution, and if they don't choose us as their executor, we'll charge them the consultancy. Yeah, they pay for the engineering part.
Very often companies do this for a pilot project also. If the pilot project segues to a full proper assignment, then they waive off the pilot project charge, or they absorb it in the commercials for the assignment, or else it's a paid pilot that the client pays for, and there is no further engagement arising from that project. That makes logical sense. Any other downside to this design thinking innovation of a commercial structure, re-engineering and customer co-creation that Ayush was talking about? Any other downside that could be there? For me, something that Ayush mentioned is a potential downside. What if there is an acute need for you to charge a higher margin? Maybe as a business, you need to survive, sustain your margins at an aggregate level. So by showing up all your cards, you have lost the choice also forever with that client. Because tomorrow, if you do a much more complex project for that client, let's say the hospital in Ambala example you were sharing, Ayush. Let's say tomorrow you do a far more complex project, or a project where some part of it has far more complexity and expertise needs. And now you need to jack up your rates. And then this client may not be able to understand or willing to understand that why should he or she pay you much higher in this case? Why the margins that you are asking for are deserved? Because that kind of work may generate, by industry standards, it may necessitate a margin of 30%, but you have been charging 20%. And this person will think, so by being that transparent, you may close all your options in future or make it more difficult. All right. Anything else? And any other experience somebody wants to share? Before we wrap up, I wanted to give you one more flavor of a design thinking tool we have been discussing frequently, which is brainstorming. So there is an interesting exercise I want to do before we wrap up. But just take. Yes, go ahead, Sharad.
Just going back on the V-Mart example. This model of opening up multiple stores across the place, right? What is the financial impact of it? I mean, because the fixed overheads, eventually it is like going into your cash flow statement, right? So how is that?
You are saying instead of opening stores in distant locations, I opened 10 stores on a milk booth strategy.
I mean, typically because nowadays these companies many companies are facing this challenge. For example, like that Big Bazaar, right? So they had multiple stores across, and eventually it was showing up in the P&L also, because
there will be some cannibalization of sales that will start happening. Yeah.
Moreover, the depreciation cost over the years starts eating into your P&L.
Good question on expansion strategy. So we found something as a pattern that changed over the years. When V-Mart started opening its stores in the early 2000s in tier 2-3 towns, it had the first mover advantage. Totally virgin, like a complete blue ocean markets is what we had. we could literally have our pick of the location and we could negotiate whatever we wanted to pay to the landlord there, because V-Mart follows an asset-light strategy. It does not invest in buying retail space. Okay, it's a 8 to 15 year lease. So the first leases that were signed in these tier 2-3 towns going back to 2003, there was no competition for V-Mart in these places, and these landlords were more than eager to let out their space to us, because overnight their retail space became a local landmark. Okay, suddenly their ancestral property of 2 shops, people would start saying, oh, V-Mart store to wo Gadaulia Chaurahe pe hai. For that person, it became a prominent destination. So landlords, so the first lease rentals that we signed were at rock bottom rates. And therefore, because we were talking about commercial, Sharad, that was the biggest consideration for us in setting up the next store and the next store, lease rental, because we were not investing, we were not buying, it was not a capex heavy model. It was a lease rental based model. So another space on rental, if we got a location that looked very appealing, we won't think twice, we would go ahead because we had the first mover advantage. But over the years, like you rightly stated, Sharad, competition sensed an opportunity, right? So you had these regional value fashion chains like One India Mart, V Bazaar, M Bazaar, present typically in a few cities in that state or 3-4 states that started cropping up. Many of them actually had some Agarwal family connection, or they were even opened by some employees who worked in the early days, decided to start their own ventures. They started with 1 shop and then expanded it to 10 in 4 or 5 years. So over time, there were more and more options available to customers. So in a catchment, let's say earlier there was only V-Mart, and now there were 5 or 7 affordable or value fashion outlets in the next 5 years. So then for you, as the market gets more and more saturated, for you to open your next store in the same location or in vicinity, for you to achieve break-even takes longer.
Correct.
And we saw this pattern. Stores that opened between 2003 to 2012, 2013 had a break-even duration of 4.5 months. That's it. And stores that we opened in the same location, like let's say subsequent stores we opened in Lucknow or Patna or Varanasi, their break-even was 6 to 8 months. Early 2020s, post-pandemic, break-even has increased to 15 months. Newest stores in same location. So now the challenge is for us to look for newer locations where we still can have the first mover advantage. And what you are asking, Sharad, is a question that financial analysts and investors are asking V-Mart management. That you no longer have the first mover advantage. This model has been copied and done to death. And there are more deep-pocketed players like a Reliance Retail and Zudio, which is a Trent brand, Tata Trent brand, right? There are more deep-pocketed players with pan-India presence, better management team, better capability, warehousing and logistics expertise. What is your distinction? Why would a customer still come to you? You are taking longer to break even. Your store level EBITDA has fallen from 13% to 8%. Exactly, these are the questions, Sharad, being asked by financial analysts and investors. If you look at V-Mart share price trajectory, it is being impacted because of this. The competitive differentiation has eroded rapidly.
Because I believe even the quick commerce companies like Zepto, none of them are profitable. Much of this is because of the dark store model, which they have to like constantly expand because of the growth strategy that they need, right? So it is all eating up into their EBITDA as a they can't run lean.
So if I presented this to you as a design thinking problem, that apply design thinking approach to this dilemma of V-Mart management, that the competitive differentiation, just not customer facing competitive differentiation, but also your store expansion strategy competitive differentiation has eroded, because that strategy has been copied by competition, and some of them have deeper pockets. They're copying it better. They can even sustain their stores at a loss for next 1 to 2 years, and you can't do that for 10 stores. It will weigh you down. So how can you use design thinking approach to addressing this challenge? What should V-Mart do with its value creation approach? Remember we had discussed the business model canvas.
Correct.
Value creation, value delivery, and value capture.
Correct.
So what is it that V-Mart must do in its value creation approach? Innovation in inventory management, innovation in supply chain management, innovation in product design, buying and merchandising, innovation in store expansion strategy, innovation in distribution channels, online, offline, customer facing strategies. So each of these you can go back to, you can revisit and you can say, these are the things we can do. If you apply design thinking approach, how would you start? You would start with user interviews, stakeholder interviews. Okay, that's where you will go back. You will understand things from customers. What are they looking for? Competitors, what are they doing? Suppliers and vendors. Because you can do things with your cost structure where you are able to procure at a lower rate and therefore you can increase your margin without increasing prices. Or you can reduce prices and retain the same margin and therefore increase customer footfalls and loyalty.
No, actually, thanks for bringing this up because I was about to ask this question towards the end. So regarding this ALP project, is it always necessary that
so
design
just a
thinking?
quick reminder to everyone, since Sharad brought up the ALP project, all groups that want to have a quick discussion with me, we have some like 15 minutes remaining, so we can spend that time on addressing your ALP related queries. Yes, go ahead, Sharad.
So, because in all the case studies when we discuss, it's all customer-centric problem statements, right? So now when we talk about this V-Mart situation, it's not a customer-centric problem, but within the company that is a problem. So we can take up such kind of situation as well, right?
Yes. So replace the word customer with user.
User. Understood.
So here the user may be the supplier. It's a stakeholder, right? So you can say, I'm going to focus on the supplier as a user, as a stakeholder, and look at what is it V-Mart can do in its supplier selection and supplier management strategy.
Understood.
And therefore innovate at my cost structure. Or you can say the landlord is a stakeholder. You know what has also happened, Sharad? Because of this increasing competition, see, you are a landlord in Ara, right? We have been using that city a lot as examples. Let me take that one. Let's say you are a landlord in Ara. You signed the first lease rent, and I've seen such a conversation, witnessed it happening between the founder of V-Mart, Lalit Agarwal. Lalit and I were on a store visit trip to Bihar. And very often on such trips, if lease rental renewals were coming up, because these landlords had known Lalit for the last 10, 12 years, and we had a strategic location in these cities. And if we vacated that space or the landlord asked us to vacate that space, our competition would get in. And there are not many such options. See, if you go to tier 2-3 towns even today, there are not so many lucrative retail options available. Wahi 4-5 jagah hai, and if you are evicted by the landlord, your competition would come in. It's pretty much end of story for you in that city. Right? So it is valuable for us to cling on to that location. Now, if you are a landlord, first lease rental duration of 12 years is over. And in these 12 years, the landscape has changed completely. It's no longer a buyer's market, it's a seller's market. Landlord is sitting in a position where he is being a sack full of more rental money by your competition. Competition कह रहा है आप V-Mart से 5 लाख रुपए का rental हर महीने ले रहे हो, we will pay you 7 lakh rupees. And your lease rental renewal deadline is approaching. Now this landlord would play his game, who would not want 40% more. And we are getting butterflies in our tummy. So Lalit would be personally tracking at least all big rental renewal. By big, I mean more than 10-12,000 square feet and in prime locations. Lalit had a dashboard where every month it was presented to him that in the next 2-3 months on a rolling basis, these rental renewals are coming in. And he would get into a discussion proactively with these landlords. Because they obviously would want a much higher rental as they are renewing this. And we would want to keep it low because that impacts our store level EBITDA and company margin. So this tussle that would ensue, what would happen, the discussion that some of these negotiations I've been a witness to, how it would go. That itself you can take as a design thinking problem. A very micro problem you can take and say, what is it we can do with landlord as a stakeholder and this relationship between landlord and V-Mart? What can we do such that the lease rental renewal impact on the company's margin, adverse impact, is minimized without compromising on the relationship equity with the landlord? That's the balance you need to maintain. You can drive really hard and say, I'm not paying more than this, and the landlord will serve you a notice. Or will start looking out, wo bolega, theek hai, 2 saal ke liye renew kar lo, and he is on the lookout then. So you have to balance these two opposing forces which are pulling you in opposite directions. This itself can be a design thinking challenge.
And so this was a very micro example of a design thinking, using design thinking to solve a micro problem.
Yes.
Can design thinking be deployed on a, let's say, a macro problem?
Strategic level.
Let's say my company, so we are going through that, we are going through that phase where we want to do a strategic expansion plan. So can I use this design thinking framework?
So what kind of solution or product is your company selling, and who are the user segments?
So we manufacture topical pharmaceutical products, which are creams, ointments.
Okay.
So we have different business segments. One is contract manufacturing, which is bread and butter. For 25 years we have been doing that.
This is over the counter or prescription based?
So we manufacture for other companies. So for all the Cetaphil, for Galderma, GSK, leading brands, we manufacture. In US we have our own front end where we are selling our products. And in India recently we acquired Soframycin and selling that product in the market.
Okay.
So these are the 3 business verticals.
So these are all generics products that you are
generic products, correct. So I mean, can design thinking be applied on? Okay, what should be the next 10-year roadmap for the company?
Yes, I would refine this question to what is it you want to achieve in the next 10 years as a company? Like a SMART goal, specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, time bound. What is that goal? So you will say, I want my EBITDA margin to increase by this much. I want my market share to increase by this much. I want my top line to grow by, give tangible numbers, put tangible numbers to that next 10-year or 5-year roadmap.
Okay.
And then I would say, to achieve these SMART goals, SMART is an acronym, specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, time bound. Each of the goals must have each of these 5 features. Then I will say, to achieve these goals, what are the biggest hurdles you see? Like for V-Mart, to defend their EBITDA margin, they will say, okay, lease rental renewal is one hurdle. Cost structure is increasing because of inflation. My procurement cost from suppliers, one of the biggest contributors to fashion apparel or any apparel cost for the seller is because most of this comes from synthetic petroleum byproducts. So you would say one of the oil prices are rising, it reflects immediately into apparel, textile and fabric prices. Unless you have cotton yarn or natural yarn, all synthetic yarns are derived as petroleum byproducts. Right? They are resin based, they are derived from petroleum byproducts. So if inflation is going up, logistics costs globally are going up because of this conflict happening in Ukraine or in Middle East, all kinds of turmoil, logistic and shipment costs are going up. It eventually reflects, and rather quickly, that eventually is not after many months. It reflects into fabric price, and then it reflects into what you are paying to your supplier. So you can say, okay, how are we going to manage the COGS, cost of goods sold? Right. So you will split that problem. You can do almost like what do we call this? The problem tree or the hypothesis tree. You can split your problem into multiple segments. That what I want to achieve is defend my EBITDA margin, keep it at this level. What are the challenges? So you will split that into specifics. For each specific, you need to come up with a solution. That's where you can get into brainstorming. What if? What all can we do? And then you will evaluate each option on your design criteria. For instance, you can say one design criteria is like in the landlord example, relationship equity should not be damaged. Another design criteria is that renewal must go through smoothly, as in my competition should not be able to get in. and it has to be a long duration renewal, not for 2 years, 3 years, because I want to have a lock-in created for next 7-8 years and not keep revisiting this every 2 years. Another design criteria can be that it should not damage my profit margin, store level EBITDA for that store. I'll give you an example, Sharad. How we address this in out of the box way, because when we started brainstorming, we said, why are we looking at the landlord as an adversary? Exactly what Ayush was saying. Why are we looking at the landlord as an adversary? वो हमसे इतना मांग रहे हैं और हम देना नहीं चाहते हैं, right? So we said, okay, let's turn the logic of a typical negotiation on its head. With some landlords, like the Patna store I was talking about, we call them anchor stores. These were stores that were generating more than 15 CR for us annually. We said with these stores, we are going to take a different approach. We are going to propose to our landlord that become a business partner with us. हमने landlord को बोला, rental पे हम बात ही नहीं करते हैं. Remove rentals from the picture. We are not going to pay you rental. How about if we paid you 5% share of profits? And we gave them the projection. We shared our store level P&L and balance sheet. We said, this is the money we have been making here, month on month average. Annual average इतना run rate आ रहा है, उसका 5% लो, and most cases they realize कि rental का 1.5 to 2 times आ रहा था. And when this happened, the landlord started taking an active interest in the business. वो कह रहा है, अच्छा मैं अपनी family को लगाता हूँ आपका store promote करने में. ये लोग जाके सर्वे करके कॉम्पिटिटर का लाएंगे कि कौन सा माल ज्यादा अच्छा बिकेगा हमारे यहाँ. वो आपके यहाँ से हमारे यहाँ पे उतर है कि हमारे स्टोर में कौन सा माल ज्यादा अच्छा बिकेगा. वो दिवाली दशहरा में खुद खड़ा होकर ड्यूटी दे रहा है, स्टोर मैनेजर उसको सुपरवाइज कर रहा है. In some cases it became a bit irritating because store managers would call the HR team and say, who is the boss here? Now the landlord has become my boss. So he comes and he's lording over कि ये jeans fold करके अच्छे से उधर रखो यार.
But that's an interesting take on this.
So you can see how design thinking, we completely like what Ayush was talking about is also design thinking applied, because you turn the conventional wisdom on its head. You are not asking how, you are asking what if. That's why the second step is what if, brainstorm.
Yeah. Thanks.
Okay. When your hands are tied down and you are thrown into the swimming pool, you will find other ways of survival because hands are tied down. I can't pay more money to the landlord. What else can I do is the question you're asking. Where I can pay him more money, but it does not go from my store level EBITDA. He is putting in all his efforts, so it higher sales, higher profits, higher market share. उसमें से पैसा ले लो.
Correct.
And the combination is also possible. I pay you a fixed fee, which is last year's rental, and I keep a variable success fee, which is dependent on higher profits. You help me run this store better. You contribute to it. We create value together. You take a part of that value. Yes, Irshad, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question regarding the flow of the presentation which you are looking, which we need to be coming up with. So how is it you look for?
So we will follow the exact 4 steps, Irshad. Start with, so let's say it's 10 minutes is what we have agreed on, right? Max 10 minutes. It can be even 6 to 8 minutes. So let's say you spend about 2 minutes on what is, which means introduce the situation, context, problem statement, need gaps that you have identified. This is the situation we are facing. This is the context challenge. These are the unaddressed or undermet or unmet need gaps. So understanding of the current reality. Spend about 1.5 to 2 minutes there. 1 to 2 slides there. Then get to what if. What if will be all of the options you could identify as a team to address the need gap you are focusing on. At the first stage, what is where you, if you have done some persona exercise, you can do user personas, 1 or 2 user personas. That this is user persona 1, this is user persona 2, if you want to, or you can show a customer journey map as an illustration, just to give us an understanding of need gaps that exist for that user persona along the journey map. Even if you have not done real life interviews based on your team discussion and understanding, still create an illustration. I will have these slides uploaded for you. The persona slides I showed you today, so that you have that as a reference point. When you get to what if, this is where you are sharing options that you identified in the team. These are the 3 or 4 options we have identified, and you will do some comparison of those options on design criteria like affordability, accessibility, scalability. We had discussed this in the last session also. Commercial viability, logistical viability, feasibility. It looks good on paper but can be implemented. That is feasibility. Accessibility and affordability for the customer, self-explanatory. Commercial viability, all of this can be delivered, but is it going to be money making for me? Is value capture potential there or not? Or will I be bleeding money? Evaluate all the options on 3 or 4 design criteria. That is what wows. What wows is evaluation of options. What if is generation of options. And then you get to what works. What works is the action plan, where you can suggest that customer co-creation we will adopt through this approach. Concept testing we will do through this approach. Prototyping we will do in this manner, which is more like your project plan, but the project plan is utilizing design thinking tools on how you intend to use it to roll out your option that you have finally selected. So what works is the execution plan, where you have incorporated some design thinking tools. Now again, if it's a retrospective exercise that something happened in the past and you are presenting that as a case study, then you will have lots of data points and examples, even for what works, what really happened, how did you go about it. Or you can suggest that this is how we had executed it, but now with the benefit of attending design thinking module, if I were to revisit it, this is how we would implement. That also can be done. If it's a prospective problem you have identified, which means there is something on which you intend to work in future, then you will be presenting this is how we intend to do it in future. Then you are doing it prospectively. Okay. So
thank you. Big insight.
Approximately 2 minutes per step, 8 to 10 minutes we are done. Keep it very crisp, fast moving. Not everyone in, there are two tired and tried. So 2-3 people in the team. If there are 3 people, let's say 3 people don't want to, all 3 don't want to present, 2 people can present. But with 2 people teams, both can present. It's your call. If only one person is, I will assume that everyone has contributed equally to the project. Whatever else be the reality that you would know, I will assume that everyone has contributed equally to the project. Any other query that helps, Irshad?
So is it a PPT you're looking for, Microsoft PPT, or could be anything you're looking for?
PPT 8 to 10 slides, and the same PPT, if there are suggestions I make after your presentation, you can incorporate it, upload, or else the same PPT will be uploaded, which I will consider for evaluation. So the PPT plus your presentation will be the inputs for evaluation.
Okay, fine.
Is there a scope of discussing beforehand as well with you?
If you are in any acute dilemma, you have my number. We can discuss briefly on a WhatsApp call. I'm sharing it again. But next entire week, I have a very busy travel schedule. Still, I am not ruling it out. That's why I use the word, the operative word is acute dilemma. If it's a showstopper that you are unable to proceed forward or need clarity, feel free to reach out. WhatsApp message is the best way to reach out. I will be actually trekking also in the Himalayas, so there will be intermittent network loss. But end of the day, I will still be in a place where I have network, because I still have to be connected to the world for various reasons. So I can't elope for the entire week just like that. Maybe that's still a few years away. As of now, I have eloped from the corporate sector.
Maybe know where are you going for the hike?
This place near, if you are familiar, near Ranikhet, place called Dunagiri Hills. There is a Kriya Yoga, if you are familiar with. Kriya Yoga, Sanctum Sanctorum is a place called Dwarhat, where Mahavatar Babaji Gufa cave is there. It's a revered place, which is where the first Diksha of Kriya Yoga had happened from Mahavatar Babaji to Lahiri Mahasaya. Who is in the same lineage. As you go further down, you will find Gurudev Paramhans Yoganand, the author of Autobiography of a Yogi. So I'm going in that entire stretch, various places, Binsar, Almora, Mukteshwar, Dwarhat. All right, so while you work on your design thinking project, I have some other designs in mind.
Ritual designing is what you're looking at now.
Okay, so, yeah, but that should not stop you from texting me. If you intend to speak, we will do that. All right, so I will meet you next weekend. Is that Saturday or Sunday?
Saturday.
Okay, all right, so very nice interacting with you. Have a good Saturday evening and make the best of your Sunday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
तुम्हाला मागचा अनुभव कसा होता? लोक सांगितलं. अच्छा. फायटिंग नव्हती मला वाटतं त्याच्यात ना. फाईट त्यांना तरी आज सांगून ठेवलं
सज्जन बड़ा खाना बना दीदी ने रखा है, फिर दीदी से रखवाया तुमने बड़ा ना क्या है ना कपड़े सब सेट करके रखो।
हाँ बच्चा वो मुझे कैसा कर रहा है सर?
अब तुम कैरी दर्पण बना
जाने हैं ना जाता है तेरा स्टाइल काहीतरी ऐसे से करना ना.
ब्रश करना
जात बघ मी नाश्ता सकाळी देत असते ना. हां एकदा ते सरांशी बोलून हां ते मला काय म्हणाले आळंदी रोडला आहे ते साई मंदिरच आहे ना म्हणे तिथे आहे. आळंदीचे तिकडे आहे ना काहीतरी साई मंदिर. त्यामध्ये चरवलीमध्ये वगैरे असतात तो आळंदी रोडच आहे ना. इट इज कॉल्ड आळंदी रोड. तिथेच असेल आणि काय बोलू त्यांना साई मंदिर असेल कृष्ण. फोन कट होतोय. तू परत आली इकडं
ऑक्सीजन बोली मुझे नहीं खाना, पापा ने मुझे बोला नहीं ऑक्सीजन, तो कुछ भी नहीं खा रही.
मैं खा पी नहीं रही, पानी भी नहीं पीती. जब मैं पानी देता हूँ ना इतना पीती. तुम देख लो अभी ताही इसके सूख रही है सब.
और उसको वो तेल में लगाओ, वो वाला जरा वो लगाओ.
तेल से ठीक होती चीजें पहले सारा हाथ का मैं तेल से ही किया है. देखिए पानी तो पिए.
हॅलो तुमचा फोन होतोय का माझा होतोय काय मला समजलं ना. हा आवाज येत नाही आणि म्हणून तरी होतोय. अच्छा तुमचा नाही येते मला. आपण त्या सरांशी बोलून घेऊ की काय म्हणतात ते किती वाजता आहे काय म्हणजे किती वाजेपर्यंत पोचायचं. तसं आपण किती 8 वाजता तर निघायलाच लागायचं 8:30 म्हटलंय तर. हां हां बरोबर. हां असं असं नाही गाडीला लागतात म्हणा. मग त्याच्या पुढेच असेल ते आळंदी आहे रोड एक तोच आहे रोड हा पण तरी पण चालेल. आणि मग तिला विचारते नीरज किंवा रश्मीचा येईलच तुम्हाला फोन जर समजा जर ती येणार असेल आपल्या बरोबर तर. काय म्हटली म्हणजे असं नाही पण फक्त तिला माहिती आहे ती म्हटली जिजा आहे मी आहे म्हणून जास्त काही करू नकोस जाऊन. तसं ओके. हा तेवढं करू पण. आणि येतानाच माझं पण काय म्हणजे जर मला यायला लागलं तर मी येईल काय म्हणजे असं काहीतरी करत. हां 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 तसं काहीतरी आता जे टाइम तिथे काय होतोय त्याच्या ह्याच्यावर आहे. हां चालेल म्हणजे नाहीतर मग पोह्यांना पोळीना खायचं असतं तर खाऊ द्या ना मी येईल पुढे. करतात हां हां सब झाड़ लो पड़े। गोली खाई तुमने काली? क्या है? चलो तूच माझी पंखी आना तूच माझी पंखी।
सिर्फ हमेशा ग्रंथी रहती, वो 0 to 12 years दिखा रहा था पर वो एक्चुअली 10 गया था। वो ग्रीन लगा और जब वो मेरा टाइम 10 to 12 years वो फिर भी पहन रही थी और वो बोल रही थी मेरा साइज है।
नहीं चलता है ये सब सिस्टर्स में, अटेंशन सिस्टर्स पे यही रहता है ना।
तुझे क्या फिर मैं ये निकालूं हैप्पी मैं अपने गोली खा के देखो सीधे कल तुम लोगों को जल्दी उठना पड़ेगा खाना खा के 8 बजे निकलना है अभी जस्ट फोन हुआ था मेरा
वो कराटे को डिस्ट्रिक्ट मैच जो वन कर डिस्ट्रिक्ट मैच वो स्टेट के मैच में जाएंगे जो अप्रैल में है तो वो विन स्टेट के मैच विन करेगा वो नेशनल मैच और नेशनल इंटरनेशनल मैच
अभी इतना प्रिपरेशन भी तो चाहिए
इंटरनेशनल मैच तो जापान हो जाएगा
इकडे हाँ हाँ जी बीच में भी एक रबर लगाना चाहिए सीधी तो बाद
नीचे गिरे हैं दीदी टिश्यू पेपर टिश्यू आपने नीचे फेंका है या गिरे हुए हैं मैंने ब्रश किया था
पेपर टेप भी निकाली थी पेपर टेप कहाँ चिपकाने वाला था तुम्हारा सेशन हो गया क्या
हाँ अच्छा वो बड़बड़ बड़बड़
पापा ये भी ले सकते ना